Well, they're obviously not together because they're in different rooms, so they're safe.
Just blow my comedic value. So again, just preload, grab a beer or something while we're waiting for everybody to join, because we're due to kick off at past. So enjoy, and
Carl, I like your light shows on your whiskies.
Oh yeah, thanks. I upgraded. Yeah. I mean, no expense spared.
I don't see any bottles opened or that. Maybe you've already.
Do you know what? I had that down as about 5 minutes in. You're a few minutes late.
Yeah, the thing is, it wasn't even a member that brought it up.
Hey, Gregor is a member. Gregor is a member of NEWAS, so he's allowed to.
Sorry, I apologise.
I was going to say, Greg, have you remembered you have to tell Carl he's got the numbering wrong, just to keep us all happy?
I am very sceptical because, I mean, 3's a lot lighter than 1 and 2.
Yeah. As I was saying before you joined, Peter, I have a feeling that I might hopefully have got 4, 5, and 6 right.
You've got 6 right. You've definitely got 6 right.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the first 3 I might have got this wrong. So we'll find out. We'll see.
Carol, even if you got them right, I would still change it just because we can be mean,
We wouldn't expect anything else.
It's tradition now.
Absolutely. Hiya, Charlie. Hiya, Malcolm.
Hello, how are you guys?
Good, yes.
Hiya.
So Charlie's joining us. For anybody who hasn't met Charlie before, Charlie's joining us from Norway, and the Norwegian contingent actually managed to get their set. Yes?
Yes.
Hey,
well done. It actually arrived on the 19th.
All right.
But
wow.
I was never notified.
All right.
Until you messaged me, and then I had to go on a wild hunt to find it.
Well, I'm just really glad that you managed to get it, because unfortunately our French and German contingent didn't get their sets, which is a bit of a shame.
No,
but
no, because they're using it for vaccines.
That's better than domestics, I suppose.
As long as they're not getting their advice from Trump, they might be better off with whiskey. Hiya, Billy. How you doing? I don't know what you're trying to kiss there, Billy, on your picture, but it looks suspicious. That's all I'm saying. Hiya, Matt.
It's got to be a tuner, though.
That's definitely not legal.
Fishy.
Yeah, it's a bit fishy. Yeah. Cheers, everybody. Having another beer.
Yes.
Has everybody, just for anybody not necessarily got their whiskies decanted, just as a suggestion, a lot of us have kind of through trial and error have found that sometimes if you put your whiskey into a glass before we start them, it gives a bit of air, opens them up a little bit. Just a suggestion if you want to. If you've got 6 glasses, stick them in glasses if you fancy.
Yeah, but if we haven't got 6 glasses, Carl, the way your number system works, we could open the next one. It's not actually for another 5 tastings yet. So it doesn't work.
Well, I think you've already been pre-warned that I'm not going to have got them right. So.
Oh, we know that.
So I think we're right. So we know
that. Oh, someone's got faith again, but it sounds like.
Hiya, Sarah. Hiya, Joe.
Hi, Glenn.
How are you doing?
Hiya.
All right.
Evening.
And I think David's keeping his on. Sorry if it's been what's the running order? That's a good question.
Nobody knows that yet.
There's a running order. Why did nobody?
Yeah, you would actually think number 1 might be the first one we start with, but you might be wrong. So we're going to find out in the very near future, unless we try and get this sorted now. Has everybody nosed all 6 of them yet?
Number six will be the last one.
So I think we might have a consensus that number 6 might be the last one that we try tonight. Any other suggestions from the nose?
No.
Just from the look, I think number 6 is the last one.
Yeah.
I mean, just from looking at the colours, I would say 3, 4, and 5 come before 1 and 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I might have bollocksed up on the number 3. That's all I'm saying.
Never.
Just possibly. You know.
In fairness, you do it on purpose to give everybody a bit of something.
No, I don't.
Ribby at.
That New Year's resolution didn't last long, Carl, did it? First tasting.
Hey, Des. How you doing?
Good, thanks, Carl.
Good, good. So we'll just give another minute or so for people to join.
I think 3 and 4 are going to be 1 and 2, and 1 and 2 are going to be 3 and 4.
Oh, hang on.
And then 5 and 6 unchanged.
I'm pretty confident with 5 and 6. Let me just say that. Yeah.
I'm taking notes here, and all the possible combinations I'm trying to rejig so that none of them are possible, you know?
We'll start with number 6.
Just because.
I'm not even sure about number 5 being right.
Oh, cat amongst pigeon.
Fighting
6, I would say definitely yes, but
I suppose it's one way to make sure it's a blind tasting, isn't it?
Well, I'm definitely doing the Glen Moray one as a blind tasting, but this one isn't a blind tasting because I have actually shown on Facebook for any eagle eyes out there the tonight. I think I might have even put it on the description as well, so I wasn't exactly hiding it.
So are we definitely starting with number 1 then?
We might be. So I guess it is Hatbast. It is Hatbast. So I'd like to maybe
3 glasses.
Shall we kick off tonight? And may I ask that just to start with, if you could just mute yourselves, and I'd like to introduce to you the 2 guys from Lady of the Glen who are kindly joining us tonight to talk us through what I think is perhaps one of the oldest lineups we've had since the lockdown. So, I mean, I think all in all, they add up to about 100 years nearly. In fact, I think it might be just over 100 years of maturation in the 6 whiskies tonight. So I'd like to introduce Paul McKendrick from Lady of the Glen, and also Gregor Hanna, who's looking decidedly in the best place tonight, sitting on casks at Lady of the Glen World Headquarters International. Hiya, Gregor. Hi, Paul. How yous doing?
Yeah, you're coming through well. So we're getting you in 5. So all's good here.
Good, good. So I guess, am I right? Is it about 100 years? Let me think. 29, 22. Yeah, there is over 100 years of maturation in the lineup tonight. So I think it's one of the, like I say, it's one of the oldest kind of sets that we've ever had. And we've done 19 virtual tastings since April. So we've gone through a fair few whiskies, but I have a feeling that we might be quite impressed tonight. So there you go. You've got a lot to live up to, guys. And these are a tough crowd. They start throwing rotten vegetables at you if they don't like the whiskies, mind. Just say.
We'll just be in their own homes, so it's not going to be the end of the world if someone throws a banana skin.
You're just not playing along with me here, are you?
Sorry. We're looking forward to it. I kind of thought we'd have a tasting in person by now, because I remember it's roughly about this time last year that we had the first tasting, really, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. In fact, I'm trying to remember the exact date, but I'm pretty sure it was wasn't it? was it in January, that like beginning of January or something, that we had? Anyway.
It wouldn't have been January, but we met up at the Glasgow Whisky Festival the year before, and then we scheduled, we'll get a tasting organised. And then it was like early last year that we had to. But yeah, all right, well, it's good, Carl.
Yeah. Well, I know we've got to start with the whiskey pretty quickly. So as it stands, I've put number 1 is the Glen 10-year-old. Now,
starting with number 5.
Sorry?
We're starting with number 5.
You it. I knew it. No, Gregor, you are joking, aren't you? Please tell me you're joking.
No, it's genuinely number 5.
Number 5. Okay, guys, so I've already bollocksed up completely. It's number 5 we're starting with, which
29-year-old Jura.
is the 29-year-old Jura. Oh, you like to start easy then, do you?
Well, yeah, I like to, yeah. We'll go with number 5, yeah.
Right, okay, so there you've heard it from the man himself. We're going to kick off with number 5. So number 5 of your sample pack.
So
and I'm sure he's just doing this on purpose.
The way it's going to work is Paul and I will both be able to answer questions, and we'll both field the releases. So if anyone does have a question, just feel free to shoot in with it. I'll probably start going over like a little bit of the business after dram 2 or something like that. But the majority of you guys already know anyway, so there's no point going into the details.
And the should say as well, Carl, would really, I mean, as much pleasure as we're getting here for really screwing up your prediction of the order. There is actually more reason than that to start the Jura. And I think, you know, you're right in saying that a 29-year-old, won't be many tastings that you'll be at or host or be involved with where you start with a 29-year-old. But ultimately, the reason for this is because you know, when you do a whiskey tasting, of course, you start with the lightest and work up to the heaviest. It doesn't always have to go that way, but if we are going that way, from all the drams we've got tonight, this one is by far the most satisfyingly smooth and easygoing. And just for those reasons alone, it fits perfectly for number 1. A couple of reasons for it, you know, you've got a Jura, well-aged Jura, refill cask, so you know it's not dominating in terms of the oak, and also ABV is the biggest consideration here at 42% alcohol. Natural cask strength just seems the logical place to start, I think. And I hope you all agree. You know, when you taste it, you'll see where we're coming from. A nice gentle introduction.
Here's the bottle. Well, here's the tube anyway. That's the bottle. We managed to get quite a few really good Jura casks over the past couple of months, and we've pretty much released them fairly quickly. So it is easy to get this confused with a previous Jura that we released, but this is the most recent Jura from the most recent outrun. And this one's a 29-year-old compared to the previous one, which was a 28. And yep, 42%. Cask yield was about 214 bottles. So, and the great thing about these particular Juras is taking a lot of the casks have obviously been slightly knackered. So there's a lot of distillate which has been able to just gently mature over the years without like lots and lots of cask influence. So it's a really probably a traditional whiskey drinkers type of dram rather than like a more contemporary heavy cask influence type dram.
I guess when I saw the 29, I guess a question that I had, I hope you don't mind me asking, is obviously it was coming pretty close to that 40% mark. Would you ideally have liked to have kept it for longer, or did you find that you were being almost forced to release it sort of now because it was getting so close to that 40% mark, or was it you know, that you felt it was genuinely hitting that sweet spot and potentially the only way might have been down from there?
Well, Paul and I were in two minds whether to release it, because the issue that we had is we had just released a Jura. So we kind of felt like it would be better if we sort of delayed releasing this so that there's not two Jura releases in the same year and it confuses people. But then the other problem that we had is that it was kind of peak where it was at. So yeah, there is an element of not wanting to let the ABV drop too much, especially because at that point we had to move it to the bottling hall. And when it gets to that age and that sort of ABV, you don't really want it going through a lot of movement, or else it could just suddenly drop and then you're sort of knackered.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still remember one of the first times I met with Gregor and talking about the roll back in March, which seems like a long time ago now. In a pub over a pint and a dram, and then a doner kebab after it. You know, those days seem like a lot longer than 10 months ago. But I do remember Gregor, we were talking about whiskies and releases, and he says one of my main rules, and I always try and stick to, is we never release whiskies from the same distillery in consecutive outruns, and if possible within the same calendar year. And yet here we are breaking those rules, two of those rules straight away, but of course, as Gregor explained, with good reason. And I think another reason for it as well is that the first one was so popular, and actually we ended up disappointing a few of our good customers, and we just happened almost by fate to get access to another cask of a very similar. It just dropped on our lap, so we couldn't ignore the opportunity to bottle this one. And it was slightly different as well, although, you know, on paper another Jura, yes, it's a year older, a different vintage, but actually liquid credentials were slightly different on it. You know, it was a wee bit fuller, a wee bit more rich, and so that's why we broke the rules, and you know, that's our excuse.
Yeah. It is lovely, smooth whiskey. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I don't tend to like to use the word smooth because sometimes that can be almost have negative connotations, particularly as I'm a bit of a fan for big, you know, big mouthfeel, big flavors. But that is a genuine kind of, it is obviously a very old fashioned Jura. You know, it's a lovely kind of, harks back to the day when some of the older Juras that I've had, and I haven't had many, but that genuinely kind of shines out for me. But just for anybody who's not, who joined maybe a bit late, we started with sample number 5, which is the Jura 29-year-old, just in case. And hi, Philip, hi, Simon. I think I'm hopefully welcoming everybody who is joining, so apologies if I've missed you. But we've got Paul McKendrick here with us, and Gregor from Lady of the Glen. So number 5. So anybody got any questions, any feedback on what they're sampling so far? You know the score for those that have been here before. For anybody who hasn't, if you want to have a chat, if you want to say what you're finding about the whiskies, we don't stand on ceremony here. If you want to jump in with your take on it, please do.
I think Peter's on another planet. Wham bars.
What?
Really, Peter?
Oh, Peter's saying it's wham bars, right?
Yeah, too bloody right. It's that kind of 80s, 90s kind of sweets. It's got that kind of real zinginess, and yeah.
Definitely the best Jura I've tasted before.
Is that Neil?
Yeah.
Have you had many Juras though? I mean, one of the issues I've had is that most of the Juras I've had have been, the likes of Superstition, the Durax,
Yeah. That's kind of where it all started, when getting a bit of a taste for the whiskies, and then everyone in the family would find out, and you would end up getting every different flavour of Jura from the supermarket for Christmas, that kind of thing. So kind of, like I've said before, you kind of peg them as the bargain basement of the whiskies, but this, completely different ballgame.
Although, I'll just ask Gregor or Paul a question, please.
Yep, fire away, John. Go on.
Do you actually know when the cask left Jura?
No.
Cheers. Because what I don't really get a lot of the, which you quite often get with the Jura is like some of the salinity.
The solidity.
Salinity.
Salinity.
Yeah, there's no sort of saltiness that you sometimes get from a Jura.
I remember, I think we had a Jura in the last tasting we did with you, I think, and it was the previous release, because I remember sharing the same story, which was one that was about the Scotch Malt Whisky Society wrote an article about lots of Jura getting re-racked in the early 90s because the casks at that point were all going through, well, they were all pretty old. They'd been used like quite a few number of times. So I think these are a couple of casks that have maybe escaped the re-racking process, and maybe they've just been given a lot longer maturation. So like these things, I'm not sure that they would have been on Jura particularly long because of the source that we had.
Right. Okay.
There's another point as well about, you know, the impact of actually maturing on, you know, an island, a coastal west coast area opposed to the central belt, and it's a debate that rumbles on about whether or not it does make such a difference. Now, obviously, yourself with that question, and to be honest, there's a part of me as well who thinks that it does make a difference, and yet science will tell you that there's no way that salt can get into a cask, but yet how do these coastal whiskies have that? You know, you say salinity, maritime character, sea spray, all those things that appear in tasting notes, you know, they are there, people get them. And is it just because we use our imaginations to think where it came from? You know, you consider something like Kalila, which, you know, none of it is matured on Islay. You stick your nose in a glass of Kalila and you're immediately taken to Islay. Is it just by association? Are we just that, you know, easily drawn, or is there actually some of the island DNA that escapes the island with the cask? And I think it's a fascinating subject. As far as, like, as Gregor said about, you know, Jura re-racking a lot, that's a good point about this cask. And in fact, Jura has suffered a lot of, in the past, with bad reputation. For probably good reason, because, you know, a lot of the, especially back in the 90s and the early 90s, round about when this was distilled, you know, they were filling pretty knackered casks, and, you know, they might have been rushing a bit of the production process, and hence the reason why the re-racking policy. But it just shows you, you know, when we deal with single casks as we do, you know, the rule book, just take it, rip it up and throw it out the window, because you can get stunners in amongst all the, you know, all the knackered casks that were probably re-racked. This one somehow managed to escape and ended up being drunk by us.
Probably one of the worst things about casks is that you end up getting close to the end of the bottle and you pour smaller and smaller drams because you know that you're not going to be able to get it again.
Yeah, that is a good point. Anybody else got any feedback on the whiskey or any other questions or anything? Before we do the old thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down, I have a suspicion there's going to be a few thumbs up on this one. Actually, there were a few questions on the price that were in the chat. I don't know, can you give us an idea of the price? Hello? We've got a visitor. Hiya. So, any other feedback on it?
I was watching something the other evening, and it was, I can't remember the guy's second name, but he's the distillery, the manager owner of Ardnamurchan, and he was asked the same question about salinity, and he reckoned that the only way that you could get any form of saltiness, salinity into the whiskey was because when it's reduced from about 72 down to whatever it is, the cask strength, it's the water itself, which is so obviously close on the west coast of Scotland, so close to the sea, and the Atlantic coming in on that one, that that's the only reason he could give for the bigger salinity within the whiskey. Because as you said, Paul, you know, there's no way it can get in through the cask. Or
I guess it's that interesting point about the DNA, you know, the actual new make coming directly off the stills. Arguably, when we went through and did the new make tasting sessions for those that took part, there was a genuine, massive contrast and difference between the different new makes that we tried in the 2 sessions. And that was between 16 different distilleries. So, you know, I guess you could argue that even at the new make level, the cask influence, could you arguably be getting some of that salinity in it? Anyway, I don't know. Interesting point though. Right, I don't know. Joe mentioned that it was sold out on Master of Malt. Have you got any of these, Paul, Gregor?
No,
Is there any left?
Everything we're tasting tonight, apart from one, is completely sold out, and that's through our own channel. I will say, and I'll emphasise, everything is still available out in the market through various retailers or friends and partner retailers that we work with. They are all available out there in the market, whether it be Master of Malt or Inverurie Whisky Shop, Aberdeen Whisky Shop, amongst a few others as well. So they are gettable, that's for sure.
And which is the one that you do have available from yourselves directly?
Are we just saying numbers just now, or are we doing it? Is it blind, or are we just happy to say
no, it's not blind. No, it's because I'm lazy. That's why I put numbers on the bottle, and that's all.
Of course, I remember you've listed the whiskies in the event page as well, so that kind of gives it away. No, the Glen Grant, we still have some available through our own website, mainly because it was a bloody big butt, and there was a lot of 444 bottles came from that cask, so wow, it's ticking along nicely, but it's still available. Yeah.
Right, great stuff. Okay. So, shall we do the thumbs up, thumbs sideways for if you're not quite so sure, or thumbs down if you weren't keen on it? And I might pick on people to give their opinion if that's all right. So we've got a few thumbs up. I'm just seeing if there was anybody who wasn't so sure. Malcolm, what did you think of it? Thumbs up? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I missed. And Ross is keeping Ross, David, Tim, Tongue that is, and Joe, you're all oh no, Joe, you're there as well. Did you give it a thumbs up? So I think not one person gave it a sideways or down. Is that right? Oh, Dave Ogden, come on. Give us your opinion if you weren't sure on it.
I haven't got my mic on, so you're all right.
Well, you better get.
I think it's an interesting dram, but it's just not something that particularly agrees with my palate. I'm getting, as much as I like blue vein cheese, I'm kind of getting a blue vein cheese at the end of the taste. It's very smooth until it hits that point, and it kind of has a bit of a bum note for me. I'm not saying it's a bad whiskey, but just for my personal palate on this day in history, it's just not doing it for me, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, and that's what we like to hear as well. It's everybody's opinion on these whiskies, and everybody has their own approach to it. So I noticed that we've been joined by the NEWAS quiz champions as well. I mean, hi guys. You're not even. Hi guys, quiz champions. I'm sure you cheated on that quiz, by the way. I'm just saying. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it's perfectly pleasant. Nice way to start the evening. That's our first dram of the day, so it's always good. It was light, a wee bit of honey sweetness, a wee bit of a musty note in it as well. Some nuts, Brazil nuts maybe. Somebody else said marzipan, so maybe that was the same sort of note we were getting. There was quite a bit of the woodiness as well, I think, and the finish was quite sort of bitter or sour finish. Maybe that's the blue cheese bit we were getting.
Yeah. And did you put your thumbs up? I couldn't remember. I didn't.
Sideways.
Oh, sideways. Okay. Sorry, I'm picking on you guys, and I wasn't even aware of whether you liked it.
You always pick on us. It's okay. We expect you to pick on us.
Good. Hi, Stuart. Are you up for giving us your quick take on it? We'll try and understand you. Sorry.
I thought it was very nice. Same kind of idea. Smooth, easy drinking. Quite happily drink it again, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Grand. Okay. Good. Well, I don't know. I think on the whole, Gregor, Paul, I think you had a bit of a winner there. I think it's very rare that we get so many thumbs up for a whiskey, and I guess age matters. So I'm all right.
We've just started. I think it's the only way is up from here.
Absolutely.
Take you to the moon and back. As long as it's not Apollo 13.
So I dare ask what should be the second dram of the night. Now that I'm clearly going to get virtually everything wrong. I'm now hanging my hopes that I've got 6 right.
Dram number 1 is the second one.
Well, it's close. Okay.
Okay, you had a 1 in 6 chance before. Now you've got a 1 in 5 chance. So you're going to get, it's getting easier.
So dram number 1. Shall we go on to that next? We're in your hands as well, guys. And obviously, if you'd like to give us a bit of background for those that don't know Lady of the Glen, that'd be good. And I take it, Gregor, you're ready to do the distillery tour.
Well, actually, probably this Glen Mossy is a really good example of what we can show you in the warehouse, because it's we actually use a profiler cask for this, a profiler barrique, and I've got one behind me, so I can show you what a profiler barrique looks like.
Yes, please.
We're going to be looking at releasing this Ben Rinnes, but as you can see, it's this is the similar sort of cask that the Glen Mossy was in. So, yeah, that's it there. It just looks like a pretty standard cask, but the profiler, the whole point in it is it's meant to enhance characteristics associated with the spirit. So if the spirit is particularly vanilla or something like that, it's got lots of fruit in it, that cask will actually bring out a lot more of those traits. So yeah, so with the cask itself, we got that one from, I think it was France, and it was a really good cooperage where we got it. The Glen Mossy Spirit, I had that for quite a few years, and it was re-wrapped a few years ago, and so it's actually quite a long finishing, if you want to call it that.
I'll tell you what, if the nose is anything to go by, I am really looking forward to trying this. What a gorgeous nose on that. And buttery is exactly what I was thinking. Rebecca, I mean, that is spot on.
Sorry, the casket is actually from Portugal. That was my bad. And it was re-wrapped. So it was in the second cask for 2 years. So it's quite a long second maturation.
It's absolutely gorgeous, that nose. I could sit and just nose that for a long time.
So again, this was 305 bottles yield, 56.2% alcohol. That's my personal bottle there. This one sold out. We bottled this in November, and we just bottled it middle of the month because we had the casks in, and we may as well get it done. We bottled it with a Glen Elgin, which was similarly finished in a roof salts cask. So those were released between outruns, but we just basically released it in this outrun. We went out last time.
I mean, just again, I haven't tried it yet, but the actual, the good old legs on the glass just tell me straight away that this is going to be a wonderful mouthfeel. It's going to be really quite oily and big. I'm looking forward to trying it. Is anybody dived in already? Dove in?
I think it brings on a good point about re-racking in general, and I think Gregor said we have the warehouse now, and we can do these things and really make the most of it. And this been a good example. Although this wasn't re-racked in our own warehouse, it is just an example of what we can now do a lot more of. And it begs a question, and a question that I often ask myself when I'm trying whiskies that have been re-racked is that, why were they re-racked? Was there something wrong with it in the first place? And I think it's really important to get across that, like we specifically, we won't re-rack a whiskey to save it. You know, if it's that bad, then we won't even consider it. Best way to think about it is just helping it on its way a wee bit. And I think a lot of the tasting notes you'll be getting from this, certainly as I was inspired to write the tasting notes for the label on this bottle, Glen for me is a classic Speyside. It's really fruity, but this cask, all it needed was a little help on its way. You know, it just needed a nudge. And the Profiler cask really brought out the fruits. And for me, they were all kind of the autumnal style fruits. So, you know, I've got things like bruised red apple and all that BS on the label. But that's where it's taken me, you know, and it's at the influence of the Profiler cask. It took 2 years to do. But also very important as well. And I think that's something that both Gregor and I are passionate about, is that we could have quite easily just left this in the cask for double the time that it was in. It would turn it to the colour of Coca-Cola, and we could, you know, sell out without even anyone needing to taste it, because the world we're living in just now is darker is better, and, you know, it must be good if it's that colour. But you do sacrifice a lot of balance there. So we're always trying to achieve that perfect balance, and it's a word that I know Gregor's sick of me saying, is that we have to find balance, and it's striking that balance between the distillery character, which, you know, we're wanting to try and tie into. If we're going to put the distillery name on the label, then, you know, we need to have that there for a reason. We're talking about, you know, the style, where it came from, and then of course what the cask has done, and it's finding that middle ground that both sides are showing within the whiskey. I think we've achieved that with this one here.
Well, I have to say, onwards and upwards, that is absolutely delicious. For me, that is head and shoulders even above the Jura. I love that. It's just such a, it really does give that full-on flavour and mouthfeel that I love in a whiskey. And I don't know if everybody's aware, obviously Glenlossie's a Diageo distillery. It's a Speyside. One of the interesting things about this, for me anyway, was for anybody who wasn't at the Christmas bash that we had, New Year bash, Dave Ogden kindly offered me a dram of either the Bruichladdich 25-year-old Yellow Submarine or Hague Club if I got the last card on the higher or lower game that we were playing. And the reason why I mention that is because Glenlossie largely goes into the likes of Hague Club as a blend, and it's just such a shame when it, you know, I mean, that's a fine dram, but like you say, it's the maturation that you've done, you know, in the different casks, the re-racking it's just that's lovely for me. It's a shame it's not available. I'm with Jeff on this, that I wish it was. I need it.
Yeah, well, it's still out there. Like I said, these are all out there in the world somewhere, available to buy. So yeah, it can be found. I think you know, you're right in what you say about, you know, a distillery like Glenlossie, and I'm pretty sure that there's a few people in the room might never have heard of it. I might be wrong. We're all whiskey people, I suppose, but you're right. You know, goes into blends, and there's a good reason for that. Blends make up 95% of all Scotch whisky sold around the world. I suspect this goes into one of Diageo's bigger blends, such as Johnnie Walker. You know, it's 90% of all Scotch whisky. It's probably more important to Diageo than single malts. So it doesn't have a core range of, you know, 10, 15, 18-year-old. Not because it's bad whisky, because it's too damn important, because it's too good. It needs to be going to blends. So yeah, I mean, again, you know, we independent bottlers themselves find these casks and give these distilleries the light of day that they deserve. You know, the Inchgowers, the Milton Duffs that don't have a core range of their own, and you know, that's the joy of being an independent bottler, is getting access to these casks that, you know, will surprise, hopefully.
I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, Paul, because I mean, the only way you will try a Glenlossie is, I believe, in the Flora and Fauna range. And that's it. There is not a core range of Glenlossie that you can go and sample. The only option you have is largely through independent bottlers and maturers like yourselves. Fantastic stuff, though. Lovely stuff. I don't know if anybody wants to shut me up and actually give their opinion on this.
Well, I was going to sort of, not an opinion, it's lovely, but they've actually got it in Master of Malt for 75 quid in stock.
I might have to go there. Right, so thanks, Bill. Anybody
So Carl,
take on it?
Carl, I think, given my love of Hay Club, as you know, I have to be honest and say this is almost a tale of two halves, this particular dram. You get all that beautiful butter on the nose. It reminds you of kind of butterscotch and those lovely things. And then you get the I think you said it was a barrique coming through, that kind of, that initial dryness in the mouthfeel. Yeah. And then you get this beautiful, and Gregor, I think you got it right, spot on, which is this beautiful continuation of the kind of lingering taste of this in the mouth, which is completely different to the butterscotch. It gives you kind of red berries and a bit of it gives you a bit of everything. This is absolutely outstanding, and well done, chaps. Seriously, well done.
Yeah, I'm loving it as well. Yeah, Dave, you summed it up better than I did there.
It's just really nice to try something that you wouldn't usually try unless it was in the blends and stuff, which is something that I find with a lot of independent bottlings, which is now my personal opinion. Now I've really started to look at more independent bottlings like these guys and Murray McDavid as well, you know, because I'm just finding it's really nice to try something completely different that you don't usually get to try otherwise.
Yeah. No, Philip, I agree entirely. I can't remember the last time I've been buying core range, because I'm finding that where my heart is in the independent bottlers. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, it's been great to work with the likes of Gregor and Dram Fool and Murray McDavid and stuff, because that's where I genuinely think that the bang for the buck is in terms of, you know, what you can buy out there, but also that exploration of whiskey is just, that's where they, you know, they're the bleeding edge.
Yeah, can I just ask, do you do, as well as just stuff like this, do you do your own blends as well of various distilleries like we see with, I've seen in the past with Murray McDavid, or do you concentrate on a single cask bottlings more?
Yeah, we're just single cask bottlers, so we don't delve into blends.
Okay.
It's something we maybe do in the future, but at the moment, we're just concentrating on single casks.
Perfect, thank you.
Gregor, can I just ask you maybe more of a philosophical question? I apologise, but I appreciate that a single cask is effectively one cask of whiskey, but it could be re-racked. But would you err on the side of a single cask should be single wood, as in one cask and one cask only, no re-rack? Or in your instance here, would you consider this a single cask but maybe double wood? And I know that's a stupid question, and I appreciate it's philosophical, but I'd love to get your thought.
Well, we put rare cask on our labels, so that sort of catches the re-racks as because technically a re-rack is no longer a single cask. And like Paul and I are agreed that terms like double wood are probably more confusing than anything else. So if we do re-rack it as part of our labeling as well, we mention on the label like what it was in before. So we put the hogshead, and then we'll mention what cask it was in after that. And then we also try and put what the original distillate tasted like, and then what the effect of the cask is. And we try and do that on all the labels now. So it's sort of something for a whiskey geek to really get their teeth into, and we're being as transparent and as authentic as possible.
Brilliant, Greg. And I apologise, I haven't seen your bottlings before, so I've not seen that. But I think that's a brilliant way of going about it, and thank you for that.
I think it's a term that's becoming a bit more what's the word? Controlled. Controlled is not the right word, but it's something that, you know, everyone slapped on their bottles or spoke about in the past. Where if it was a complete bottling from one cask, then it was the term was, this is a single cask whiskey. and it's only now starting to be tightened up, you know. And as Gregor mentioned, anything that's been re-racked, technically, you can't call a single cask unless it was re-racked for the reason if it was leaking or something like that, and you didn't have a choice. So even more than ever, we've got to be careful. And if I'm standing up in front of people, we will say, you know, all the whiskies tonight are all single cask and all cask strength, but we use that term very, very loosely because, again, you know, as I said, if you're going by the book, technically, if it's been moved from one cask to another for the purpose of adding or changing flavour or something like that, then you can't technically call it a single cask. Not that it stops some bottles to be.
That sounds to me like legality is getting in the way of semantics. Like,
there's ways around it. I mean,
that's come from one cask and it's been bottled, and you can't get it again from that cask. Doesn't matter how many casks it was in beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, there's the ways around it are, as Gregor mentioned, we put rare cask on the label, but you know, other bottlers as well will say, you know, this has been bottled from one cask. A single cask bottling or something like that, or you know, bottles from one cask. You know, all these things are ways around that. You know, you're sort of saying the same thing, but you're, you know, that the order of the words is not by the definition. And as I say, it's not actually a law yet, I don't think, or it is, but it's not enforced too strongly. But I think it should be. You know, amongst many other loose rules that there are in this industry.
I think it sometimes depends who you are as well, because SMWS got a kind of a lovely letter from the SWA to say stop using the term single cask because they do so much re-racking as well. So I think if you're attracting a lot of attention, then yeah, you're probably going to get a cease and desist. But if you're maybe not attracting so much attention, then you may get away with it. But
well, we are members of the SWA, so it is good to stay inside the tent rather than outside of it, really. But it does help to try and be aware of the rules. I mean, we've recently have changes to our labelling for distributors in Europe, and the SWA did provide some level of guidance for that. So I do feel like it is important for us to have these benchmarks and standards, because ultimately we're trying to make the product as clear and understandable and not make it into a Wild West, which is sort of what you've got in other industries like probably gin,
rum, Japanese whiskey. Yeah, there's an integrity thing about it, isn't there?
And please understand, guys, when I ask the question, there are very few regular. I say regular, but you know, I get on a flight and I grab a Johnny Walker Red, or I go to a bar and I start throwing whatever into it. I'm not taking anything away from those people. Blends, as we've already said, take up probably 95% of the market. It's the geeks like us that perhaps do appreciate that. That's the singular nature of the drink you're going to, you know, the dram you're going to drink, if you will. So it's just that term single cask for me, it's not a single cask. Doesn't mean to say that it's not it doesn't come from a single source. Calling it rare and describing what's happened is brilliant, because it gives you an idea, and also it helps guide you perhaps for future, which is, you know, do you know what, I really enjoyed that, you know, Glen Lossy from Lady of the Glen, and that's going to drive me to a particular, perhaps another cask, because it happens to be of a similar makeup. But you know, as I said, it was a philosophical question, and I appreciate the discussion. So thank you.
No, I think Dave, the point that you're raising is important for all of us, really, that are on here tonight, probably, and that is that we like to know what we're drinking and what we like to know what we're paying for when we're buying bottles. Not every consumer is that bothered, but for those that are bothered and would like to know a bit more, I think having that information is really useful. Heck, when I was green as grass, I had no clue. You know, somebody would say cask strength, and you know, like a lot of people assume, all right, that actually means that it's a little cask, and look back and with blurry eyes at how nice you know that individual cask might have been, and I guess that is the thing. As you develop your knowledge and your experience, you kind of want to delve into it a little bit more. So thanks for that, Dave. I guess, is there anybody else wanting to comment on this one? Anybody not find it particularly to their liking, or? quite taken with it? Are we fighting over the last remaining bottles on Master and Malt?
Jeff Sarantos has just put something up saying he wants one.
All right.
And he's had to leave.
It's also on Time Drum.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Bill. Right. Well, in that case, shall we do the old thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down? I better put back on view so I can actually watch what everybody's doing. Let's have a look. What's everybody thinking? Frazee, you liking that one?
Yes, very good.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Bit too Moorish.
I'm definitely going to pick on anybody who puts their thumb down on this one because, you know, I mean, you'd have to be mad not to like this one. Come on. I think that's everybody. Does anybody want to unmute themselves if you weren't that keen? Richard? Richard, did you like it? I didn't notice whether you put your thumb up or not.
Yeah, we liked it. Me and Des just bought a bottle, so.
You big cheaters!
That's all that needs to be said.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Good. What about you, Dave Hasnip? How you were liking it? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's smashing, Carl. Really like this one. Yeah.
It is a beauty, isn't it? I really like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to pick on anybody else unless you want to jump in and say a piece before we move on to the next whiskey. I mean, heck, if it gets better from here, I think, you know, I might have an orgasm or something. Just saying.
I should point out as well, I did a tasting last night for a certain whiskey club, drinks gathering club on the other side in the west, from Liverpool, little group over there. And to be honest, the lineup was very similar to tonight, bar one. And believe it or not, the Glen came last. So I think that says more about them than the actual whiskey or the group. So we'll leave it at that.
Okay. Or you've given us bum whiskey compared with what they got.
Well, take what you will. As I said, it was this very similar lineup, bar one whiskey. So
we'll see. We'll see. And apparently I might get thrown out. Mike's going to throw me out. He's the bouncer, and I might get thrown out of my own tasting. Oh. Right. Let's. Shall we move on then? Why not? So, dare I ask, what do you think should be the third whiskey of the night?
It's dram number 3.
Oh, I bollocksed up again. God. Okay, number 3 it is. So, sample number 3.
It's a good job I didn't open all of these and pour them out beforehand because I only got 2 glasses.
Oh, sorry. You need to.
You got that right, though, Carl.
6 glasses. So this is the Tinanich, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
you got that right. Drum number 3 is number 3.
That's the first one you got right, Carl. Well done.
Oh, yes. Okay. Sorry, what am I saying? I actually expected to be wrong. Right, so number 3.
Broken clock is right twice a week, twice a day.
Absolutely. So the Tinanich. So this is the 16 Tinanich, 16-year-old.
Yes. Paul, do you want to tell the story how this one ended up in the warehouse by accident? Or
what, because you made a mistake?
Yeah.
I thought you would want to tell that story. I'll take pleasure in it. That's fine. Yes, Gregor brought in the wrong cask. The thing with casks, especially when you're dealing with one of the Diageo monsters that is Tinanich, and the fact that their cask numbers go up into 6, sometimes 7 figures, it's very easy to make a typo when moving casks. And I think I might need Gregor to help me, but I think we were trying to bring in a cask that had been re-racked into port.
Yeah, it was Tawny Port. Yeah.
Yeah, thinking that would fit very, very well with the current outrun that we were looking at bottling. And then when this one arrived, we both looked at it and went, "That's a funny looking port cask. It looks very, very refill hogshead like, with the layers of paint falling off the side because it had been refilled 3 times or something like that." But so checked, and yes, there was a numerical error in the request for the cask. But heck, you know what? We tried it anyway, and it's one of those moments that I'm sure, and I hope that Gregor and I have many more of them as the years go on. You know, pouring a dram from this cask in a glass, sticking your nose in it, and just looking at each other in disbelief at actually how good this was. And I'm not a big believer in fate and things like that, but again, you know, like the Jura, it's almost like this landed on our lap for a reason. It was brought into our warehouse for a reason. Yes, it's on paper not that exciting. Teen and Eek, oh, whatever. 16-year-old, okay, good age, but refill hogshead, But when you actually try this, you realise that, you know what, we're so glad we didn't re-rack this, because this is just perfect the way it is. It's perfect age for the cask influence from a very, very good distillate, I must say. Teen and Eek is by the book good spirit they produce, and does take a little bit of time to reach its best. 16 years has really brought out the best in this one. So we just thought, actually, you know what, this is perfect for the outrun, and we bottled it, and it's been well received. A happy accident indeed.
Yes.
So kind of changing it down a little bit. I think, you know, again, you talk about a tasting lineup, and I mentioned at the start, you know, you go from lightest up to heaviest, and sometimes it's nice just to change that a little bit. If you have too many refill hogsheads or bourbon casks in a row, and then you have too many sherries, they kind of get lost. So I thought this one would be a good one to go after the slightly fuller Glenlossie, just to kind of round things off. But again, you know, based on the age, there's a lot going on in here for a cask that's a refill hogshead cask. It offers a lot at this point in the tasting, I think.
Yeah, I found the initial palate on it, I found the nose really quite light and subtle, and the same with the initial hit from it when you first try it. But it's one of those that I think you could sit and just relax over, because it gives you more the longer you spend with it. It's nice. I like it. I probably, my heart's still with the Glenlossie, but this is really nice still.
Carl, the heart will go on. So you just, you need to find a new love.
I have a feeling it might be number 6.
Spoiler. It might not be.
Obviously Lorraine as well. Anybody want to?
This cask itself, without sounding too boring on it, but probably I wouldn't normally try and release a cask like this, because it would just be not very interesting at all. But as Paul says, the actual tasting experience was really good, and we were able to price it at a really good solid price as well. So for our distributors, it was really popular, which is surprising for something that is more of a workhorse distillery, and it's a refill hoggy. So it's given us a lot of confidence in terms of what we can release. So it's worked really well for us.
Yeah. From an independent bottler who has a fairly active re-racking policy, just is so reassuring every now and then to have something like this available, just to show that it's not always about firing into very active sherry casks and making it turn into Coca-Cola. It's about finding the gems. That's what independent bottlings are all about. In fact, it would, and I'm sure Gregor would agree, it would make our lives a lot easier if we just fired everything into active sherry wood and we know, there's a sale, there's a sale, there's a sale. But it keeps us on our toes to know that, there's these gems out there that don't actually need anything into them. We just have to find them. And so it keeps us keen, that's for sure.
So while people are just sampling this one, how about a little bit of background about Lady of the Glen for those that maybe haven't heard of Lady of the Glen or come across you guys before? I know, just to give us an idea of the kind of size. I mean, how many casks do you currently have sitting in your beautiful distillery at the moment?
So, where the business started in 2012. I started it and named it after a roast at Stirling Castle because I was really fond of my experience there. And from that, I got a loan from the bank, and I told them I was going to use it to buy a car to commute to work. I used that to buy 2 casks, which was a 14-year-old Ben Rinnes, and I think it was a 19-year-old Invergordon. I got really lucky in that I was sitting on these casks for a long time, but then I managed to export them to Germany. Then got some support from the Prince's Trust, which was really great, and really lucky as well because the Prince's Trust don't really give that sort of funding anymore to those sort of businesses, those sort of like whiskey enterprises. We won Scottish Edge as well, and since the past few years, we've built up a portfolio of casks of about 260 odd from some of Scotland's finest distilleries. We have, as Paul mentioned, an active re-racking programme. So I have a good relationship with bodegas in Portugal and in France. We source casks from vineyards in Sicily and northern Italy. You'll be familiar with our Kalila, which has been re-racked into Amarone wine, which have been hugely popular. Paul started with the company at a perfect time to start any new job, which was lockdown last year. So this is Paul bursting out of the gates, and we got this warehouse at the tail end of last year. We got the lease in August, and we got all the licenses in October. So this is where we bring the casks for evaluation, for re-racking, and for bottling. So at the moment, the team consists of 4 people. So there's Paul, who's the brand ambassador for Lady of the Glen, and we've got 2 guys here that assist with the bottling and help with some contract bottling that we do. We've got Gavin Routledge and Alex McAndrew, and yeah, we've been working as a close-knit team, just getting casks bottled and bringing them to market.
Gregor, did you say how many casks roughly you've got at the moment that you're kind of working with and re-racking on a constant basis?
I wouldn't say re-racking is constant. We haven't really bought casks since Brexit, but we've got about 260 casks at the moment, and we're evaluating that portfolio. We're bringing up 7 or 8 casks for evaluation for Q2 outrun. So we're already working towards the releases in March, and we've got some really nice ones coming in as well.
And when you're looking, I mean, I guess this is a question for both of you, Paul and Gregor, and that is that when you're looking at the casks that you've got, do you try to have a range, not just of maybe the kind of profiles, but also at the price points as well? Are you trying to kind of hit a lot of the whiskey buyers out there in terms of, you know, obviously their budgets and things, or do you tend to find yourself naturally kind of moving into the more premium side of the market, or what, you know, like what's your general kind of view, I guess?
Well, we've got a criteria where we try and release at least 1 sherried cask or something that's got like a really intense fruity flavour, or has been in a particular sherried cask. We try and release a cask that's over 15 years old, which will be an old cask, and we try and get one which is in a good entry-level price point. And then we have those rules not to release a cask from the same distillery within the same year, but we've sort of been breaking that rule just because some casks are just, they're right to get released and can't really not release them. But Paul's more hands-on with the sort of cask selection as well, so he'll be able to give you some details.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gregor pretty much summed it up, to be honest. Yes, we're ticking boxes. So, you know, within a release, we're trying to, as you said, have that sherried one, the premium one, ideally the Islay one, although those casks, of course, are becoming a little bit more harder to find these days, and especially in a price point that we're happy to release. But yeah, so it's ticking boxes. It's making sure that there's a little bit of everything there. And, you know, as I say, we're trying to create that little bit of variety, but also within the cask style as much as anything else. But, you know, it's a good challenge to have. Sometimes you know, likes of the case with the tea and the niche, something just lands on our lap and we just can't ignore that it's right to be bottled and released.
Can I just ask a quick question? You've just touched there that you've not bought any more casks since Brexit. How much more are you expecting to pay for a cask? And did you buy plenty before to make up due to the extra fees and tariffs that we're looking to pay? And how much extra are you looking to have to pay for a cask now because of that?
So when I mentioned we've not bought casks since Brexit, there's two ways I'm referring to that. The first one is we've not been buying casks from Europe, just because there was issues in terms of getting the casks actually over. That's been a bit of a concern. And the other reason that we've not purchased probably as much bulk stock as we would normally do is that we want to be a bit more capital in, just to make sure that the business is keeping going, because capital is really key for that. So we still bought like a good 30 or 40 casks at the tail end of last year, and we still have about at least a third of our portfolio is in very unique sort of wine casks of some sort, either fortified or just traditional wines. So we don't really have a concern. We'll probably buy more casks in March again, and we've already got an order in to purchase more casks for March.
Good to hear that. That's good to hear.
Yeah. Just out of interest, what kind of impact has Brexit had in terms of the cost of buying, say, a port cask from Portugal, or a sherry cask from one of the bodegas?
I mean, probably the biggest impact has been the exchange rate. So the actual cost itself isn't too bad. It's just the lower pound makes it a bit more expensive, and the transport is an issue because there's less transporters who are able to do it.
Yeah.
But these things, the transport issue will resolve itself at some point, and we'll get the options again.
Yeah.
The cost of the casks, unfortunately, that will just be something that we'll need to deal with. But when it comes to the actual cost of the cask, it's not a huge burden. It's more the burden itself comes from the waiting for the cask to have influence, if it's going to do that, and the laborious process of going visiting the warehouses to try it. It doesn't. It sounds quite fun getting to go to Marseille, but when you need to go to like Sagozniak and you're on the train, and I don't enjoy flying. I've got a fear of flying, but it's a sacrifice that you need to make to get the casks.
Yeah. Right, I have a feeling that there's some thirsty-looking faces on this meeting. So I think we should move on to plans for the next whiskey, maybe. But before we do that, did we do the old thumbs up, thumbs sideways, and down and stuff? I don't think we did we? On this, so let's do it now. What's everybody thinking? Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, thumbs sideways, Bill. Okay. Dad, you liked it as well. Good stuff. Royson, you kind of, Royson, yours is kind of, a bit sideways as well. Okay. So on the whole, I think pretty good. Does anybody want to get picked on? Any other comments or anything? Or shall we move on to the next drink? Because it looks like you might be really, really parched.
Just going to say one final thing, Carl. I think for me, this is a beautiful, beautiful dram from a refill, as in, I think you said it was a third refill cask. This is, as I think I posted, kind of see myself in the garden on an early summer, late spring day with a nice, cool, gentle breeze, fresh grass freshly cut, just sipping on this on the afternoon. This is just a wonderful delight. Gregor, Paul, seriously, another great one.
Yeah. Thank you. Cheers. I agree with that. This is a very summery whiskey that was bottled in October. But I might just manage to save myself a little bit for the summer. That 1 week we have here in April.
Newcastle's not far behind you, I can tell you. Right, good stuff. Okay, so I think we'll just move on to the next one, because I can see there's some hunger out there. Actually, one quick question though. Henry asked, any plans of sourcing non-Scottish whiskies? Anything? Just a quick answer on that one, maybe. Anything in the pipeline?
No.
Great, a concise answer. Okay, there you go. Right, so there we, you know, is number 2 maybe the 4th whiskey? Does that make sense?
Yay.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It is, okay, so number 2 is the Othrusk 12-year-old. So sample number 2. Let's dive in, people. Slangy, by the way. Enjoying it so far. And apologies for my crack. I know it's bad. Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay. This makes...
Oh, this is leather and polish.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving into the sherried territory now.
So is it all?
Yeah.
Rebecca's asking what it is.
Yeah, it's
number 2, Arkwright.
Yeah.
Yeah, 12-year-old Othrusk. It's well, Othrusk.
Sorry.
I've heard it so many different ways, and I don't think it really matters. I think as long as you know which one we're on. Spelled Othroysk. I've heard someone from further north than me call it Othrusk, and it just stuck with me. So that's what I'll call it. But yeah, as I say, we're moving into sherry territory, and another good example of what we can do with working with casks in terms of re-racking. So again, you know, Othrusk is one of those distilleries which mostly finds its way into blends. More so now than before. It did used to have a kind of core bottling as part of the Singleton range, which, you know, not so big in the UK, but huge for Diageo right across the globe. And I think Othrusk was the original Singleton Othrusk. And I'm pretty sure Diageo will tell you the reason why they moved away from that. You know, probably some story about, you know, Glen being a better example of what they were trying to achieve. But for me personally, I think it's just because people couldn't pronounce it. Simple as that. So they moved away for that. But again, more for us to have to bottle. So as I said, a good example of re-racking. So this 12 years old, spent most of its life in its original hogshead before being moved for its final 2 years to a XPX Pedro Jimenez sherry hogshead, just to give it an extra dimension. And again, I told you at the start, and I'll use the word balance quite a lot and probably sicken everybody with my terminology. But this to me is, again, like the Glen Lossy, just a great example, and especially when we're now moving into sherry whiskies, when we know, again, we could have left to turn to the colour of treacle and bottled it, no problem, and it would have sold. But you would have lost a lot of the character. So striking the balance, finding that right time to bottle it. Which is, you know, it's a hard job, you know, that all that tasting, all that checking on a weekly, sometimes daily basis to see what the cask is doing, you know. Hard job, somebody's got to do it. It's probably, you know, the worst part of the job, Gregor, I think, isn't it? Oh no, it's not. It's actually having to drive home after work. That's the worst part of the job. Yeah, I live 31 miles from the office, so I could cycle to work as well, but that would be possibly worth it.
You have legs like Chris Hoy.
You've not seen my legs yet, actually. I've got cyclist legs and I don't even cycle, you know. Don't know how that happened anyway.
I've not seen your shoes.
Definitely a plus for working from home, that though.
That's true. Homework is good actually with this role. It's pretty good. Yeah, certainly worse things to be doing on a Saturday night than enjoying a few drams and calling it work, that's for sure. With like-minded people, that's the important part.
Well, this one for us has split the room, so I absolutely adore this. This is my new favourite so far. Lorraine, you don't like it at all, do you?
No, I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
Oh, this is lovely.
It's gorgeous.
No.
It's like coffee and stout and rum and raisin ice cream and.
I'll finish this then.
I'm not getting any of that.
And whiskers on kittens.
Yeah.
Doesn't work with water though.
I'm not even daring to put water in this.
I'm spreading these thin, so I've got 2 glasses and I'm splitting it halfway and putting a little bit of water in one, and it's absolutely killed it. Taking away any flavour, any smell whatsoever.
Yeah, you've got to watch with. I tend not to talk about water too much. Of course, it's a very
controversial,
very important part of drinking, especially cask strength whiskies. But you've got to be very, very careful, and especially with sherried whiskies, in my opinion, anyway, they are the ones that are more sensitive to water. They can sometimes vastly improve it, but they're more likely to kill it than, say, a bourbon matured whiskey when adding water.
I just realised I coordinate with the bottle.
Many points.
This is the secret Isla, which is lovely.
All right, and an improv addition to the tasting then.
Yeah, share it around, Joe.
Well, I actually bought this after you did the tasting at Stroud Whisky Club.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Thanks very much.
That's pleasure. No, thank you for doing the tasting.
I noticed, Joe, you seem to be the one that wins lots of competitions on lots of whiskey Facebook pages and stuff. I know it's your name popping up.
Yep. You got to be in it to win it.
Ticket to win the raffle.
Well, I have to say, I'm really liking this. Anybody else really a big fan of this? Obviously, Joe and I are. Anybody want to dive in and give their opinion?
This is lovely.
It is. I'm really liking that.
Mm.
I dive in, or shall I pick on somebody?
I'd be curious to know, again, without picking on people, if you don't like it, do you think it should have spent more or less time in the PX cask, if at all? If that's what you maybe think it would be better, a bit more time in there or a bit less? Just curious.
Actually, Paul, that's a sorry. And please, anybody else jump in. But just as a quick point, I've always loved the idea of actually taking a cask as a consumer and having release points of it, a bit like, as an owner of a cask, you might get a sample each year or whatever. But the idea of actually having this in the PX for another 6 months and being able to compare and contrast it would be a lovely tasting set, or, like something to buy into as a consumer. So for me, I would have loved to have tried this with a bit more of the PX influence in it. But it is gorgeous. I'm loving it as it is. So it's a tough answer really from me anyway. I don't know what anybody else might want to sort of pipe in on it.
How long was it in the PX for?
2 years.
2 years, yeah.
2 years.
I'm
Really?
sorry, I missed how old it was to begin with, chaps. I apologise.
12.
12, yeah.
It's really, really nice.
Does anybody want to answer their opinion on whether it they would have liked to, or whether they think it's spot on right, or whether
I'm not a huge fan of sherried whiskies, but I'm gradually getting into them, and this is just about right for me at the moment. I'm working my up to Glendronach. I would really like Tamdhu, but no, I'm really liking this.
I think just a wee bit longer. I think we'd have sort of taken it to another level. I'm sort of missing a lot of the dates, the raisins, and that sort of fruit yumminess that I would expect, for it being a sort of PX cask. So I think a wee while longer wouldn't have hurt it at all.
Yeah, no, thanks, Billy. I appreciate that. It's certainly all, feedback is great. And I do like how, you guys are all comfortable enough to say whether you don't like a whiskey, because you do find some groups, they're more nervous about saying they don't like one, but then they do like one. I'm sure Gregor will agree. We appreciate all feedback, because more than ever, we appreciate how different everybody's palates are. And you know what? If every whiskey was great on the tasting, it would be a little bit more boring than it is with a split room. So But yeah, I mean, for me personally, there's the PX is just starting to really take over in terms of its sweetness. It's got quite a tart finish going on, and for me, the reason why I took it, we chose to bottle it when it was and not leave it any longer, is just because that PX might start to take over and just become a bit too sweet, too liqueur-like, and less of a classic Speyside whiskey. But you know, Carol, you're right. It would be fun. We'd love to have a crystal ball as well, because the ultimate question is, how do you know that it wouldn't get better? We have to take an educated guess. It might have got better, but we think, you know what, it's not going to improve from here, so to speak. But a crystal ball would be fantastic, just to see where it would go. And the progress.
I mean, for me, sorry, go on, John.
I was going to say, I think quite often where like sherry maturation's concerned, especially with an octave, less is more, because you can go too far, and then it becomes
and overpower the spirit. Yeah.
So I think
I like the toffee on the finish of this one.
I think it's much better to err on the side of caution where that's concerned, and bottle it possibly a little bit prematurely rather than letting it stay on in the cask.
Yeah, you just need that hint of sherry, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I've had whiskies before that have just definitely spent too long in a cask, and all you can taste, it's like chewing on an oak stave. It's just too much. So I think,
agree with that. I think for our taste, certainly that's time enough. And as with most things, I'll disagree with Billy. And it's sweet enough at that, the brown sugar, fruitcake sweetness, with that touch of leather and polish. I mean, already we're probably saying, well, that's really nice, we like that, but we can only have one of those of a night. I wouldn't want to sit there all night drinking that already. It'd just be too rich and sweet for us.
yeah, that would be like the sort of the last one of the evening after you'd had like a couple of bourbon matured ones.
I agree with you there, Callum, as well. I think this, again, guys, you've got a great dram here. But Gregor, if I may ask another just question of the kind of process for you from getting a cask to re-racking to then bottling, if I may. What would be the difference to you in terms, and I understand that obviously you're deferring capital, if you will, as into deferring the bottling expenses, but also what you'll get back from the sale. But if you were to say, leave this for another year, for example, in the PX cask, what's the material difference to you as opposed to, you know, you did it 12 years, what would be the difference at 13 years? Is there a break point? Is there's something, because feedback is obviously important, but where does that line get drawn? Because you could say, let's leave it in the PX cask for 5 years and make it a sherry bomb versus leaving it for 2 and allowing just the influence.
So the rent would be the only cost, and to be honest, the rent would be negligible. So there isn't really any massive difference if we were to leave it 3 or 5 years financially. We could probably just charge more because it would obviously be older. So you'd be justified in charging more because it'd be rarer.
I guess the beauty of where you're coming from, though, is that you actually are focused entirely on trying to find the sweet spot of the whiskey.
Well, we've got our criteria as well. So we want to get that release out, which has got a sherry influence. But then, as we've spoken about before, balance is really important to how we operate. And one of the most important values that we've got, we're about flavours and about people consuming and drinking the whiskey. So we're not a rarity bottler. So we could, if we wanted, just apply our really old 1980s casks and just release them. And then no one would probably drink them because the price would be too high and there would be collector's items. So, but that's not our business model. We're about flavours and making sure that the whiskey is consumed, which is ultimately what the distillers want and what the cask producers, the coopers want, and what we want.
So, Gregor, where's that sweet spot for you? You know, in this wonderful world of ours, you know, depending upon where price points are and age and everything else, if you could always buy that kind of, I say semi-perfect dram, but people will like it, some people won't. I get that. But where would the given point be for you? And given that, where would the end point be for you? I know it's a random question, but I'd love to get your thoughts as an independent bottler. Do you want the 250, 300 pound bottle of whiskey that sits on the shelf that you perhaps make a little bit more at? Or do you want to sell the 60 to 100 pound that you know that some people will buy a couple of because actually, do you know what? They want it in the years to come as well.
Well, I think you can see from our outruns that we are pricing the products based on the assumption that they're going to be bought and consumed. And as I mentioned before, we're not specifically a rarity bottler, so we don't bottle really, really old casks with a view that they're going to be going in oak boxes and being held as collector's items. We do sell oak boxes, and we have done really old casks like Capardonic, but they're not exactly in a price range where if you were to open it, that you would suddenly feel like a horrible guilt about doing it.
Thank you.
I think as well, you know, it must be considered that we, when assessing casks, we do consider the price, you know, because, for example, we could bring in a cask or try a sample of a cask, and it could be the best whiskey, you know, that we've ever tried that day. But it could be, you know, and very expensive for what it is. But at the end of the day, you know, you're right to ask what the sweet spot is in terms of pricing. Ultimately, you know, we're drinkers, we're whiskey drinkers before it's our job, in a sense. So we always put ourselves in your shoes. So would we buy it? You know, that's if we would buy it, if we think the quality matches what we would have to charge for it and what the price would end up being on the shelf. And if the answer is yes to that, then that's the sweet spot, in a sense. You know, so it's all taken into consideration.
That's great to hear from our side of the fence, because we get to sample some whiskies that will never be able to be tried again. You know, it's not the Lagavulin 16s or the, you know, insert name of Diageo brand here, or, you know, the kind of general stuff you get on the supermarket shelves either. And I think for a lot of people on here, and I'm speaking for people and I apologize, but we care about that kind of, that certain specialness, that certain je ne sais quoi you're not going to get again unless you buy a lot of bottles. But also, you know, people have to consider how much do certain things cost. So it's great to hear that when you consider when to bottle, you're considering it not from a price point perspective, but from, would we be happy to drink this at the price point that we're going to put it out at? And that's what I think makes a very successful indie bottler, because, you know, you get a lot that will go for the 600, 700, 800 pound bottles of maybe Springbank that people will buy, but actually it's not going to really get into the hands of most people. But, you know, to build a brand, you've got to have a good following. To get a good following, you've got to get the bottles out there. And it's great to see you guys kind of going down that route of making sure that us who get to drink it are going to be able to be the people who can afford it and get on with it.
Okay, I'm going to butt in and I'm going to ask, who thinks this is the nicest so far?
No.
Rebecca, I can't tell. I can't see your thumbs up. Okay, I think there's a few people that are like me. I'm thinking this might be my favorite so far, but yeah, okay. But there's a lot that, you know, maybe you're expecting a lot from number 6.
You've made me like a sherried whiskey. You're getting good.
Good. Well, I think we've done, well, we haven't done the thumbs up, so I guess everybody's, you know, I think already kind of given us their view on it there. So I think so far, so Martin, the Glenlossie for you, I can understand. I still love that Glenlossie. I see exactly where you're from. Yeah, you think the Glenlossie as well, right? Good stuff. Okay. Second. Right. Okay. So shall we move on? What's going to be the 5th and second last dram of the night? official tasting.
Dram number 4. Yep.
Dram number 4. I got 6 right.
Got 4 right as well, Glenn.
Yeah, okay.
Did.
Get 4 out of the 6 right
Yeah,
so far, then.
I
Well,
can
you
live with
will
that.
have for her.
Yeah, I was just hoping for 1 right. So this is the Glen brand.
All right, so this is the tube for it. Now, obviously everyone can drink it and tell us your thoughts, but we actually, Paul and I had a debate conversation with this. We were both in agreement, but what it was, we've actually used like the bourbon style label for this, rather than the refill sort of, rather than the sherry coloured. So if you notice, we put colours on the bottom of our labels, like this one's yellow, which is usually for bourbon. The Glen Mossy is a brown, a tawny brown for like a fortified wine. And where we have a sherry cask, we'll use like this sort of more darker red. Whereas with this, even though it's a refill butt, we'd assume that it's going to be a sherry cask. And to be fair, when we acquired this cask, I assumed that it was going to be fairly heavily sherried in terms of colour and the flavours that we were going to get from it. But when we actually got the cask, and it was a bloody big butt, it had more of the sort of flavours that you'd associate with the hogshead. A lot of, I mean, it's probably European oak, to be fair, so you're still getting a bit of spice and fruitiness with it, but it's not. There's no colour to imply that it's anything sherried. In fact, it's probably been sherried a very, very long time ago. Considering this Glen Grant is 22 years old, there's no amount of knowing how many previous fills it's had in it. So it's probably exceedingly old butts as well, like potentially over 50 years old.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it definitely is a refill cask. But I think when you know it's in a butt, you certainly have a chance, an opportunity to see even just a little bit of development of flavour from the European oak. This for me does have that, but of course it's well watered down in terms of the impact because of the amount of times it's been refilled. And of course we don't know that as such until we were to take a 22-year-old matured in an American oak cask side by side. But for me, this definitely does have that the hint, the trait, the clues that the type of cask it was matured in, and that European oak is very, very subtle, but it's right there. And I think the tasting note that we agreed on for the label, the top line for me is orange barley sugar, which I would not get from an American oak cask. What to do with the spirit as well. Glen Grant has that sort of creaminess that turns into slightly citrus character as it matures, especially if it's allowed to mature in a refill cask and not be dominated by the oak. But yeah, this is a really interesting one. I think, the most rewarding casks we bottle are sometimes the ones from the refill casks, like the tea and unique earlier on. When you find those more delicate flavours that surprise you, and it's the surprise that we get on a daily basis, considering the casks that Gregor's bottled and myself as well from previous roles. It's those surprises and unexpected elements that make it so rewarding when you do find those casks. And I think I don't know if I described it to you, Gregor, but certainly the way I talk about this whiskey, and I hope that those of you who have 6 glasses and might have had this poured for a little while will really get the benefit of this one, because Carol, you touched on earlier on about whiskies taking a bit of time in the glass to open up and breathe, like we talk about with wine. This for me is a perfect example of that, which a whiskey that gets better as you leave it in the glass a little bit as the alcohol starts to burn off. And I don't know if you remember my story, Gregor, but I've described this as a whiskey. It's like the old man at the end of the street when you were young, who you dare not kick your football into their garden because the old man is so grumpy. that you'll burst your ball. But as you get older, and you actually start to know this old guy, and he's got a character, he's got stories to tell, he's been to the war, and actually you find out that he's actually really a really nice guy, and he's got so much to offer. This to me is like this whiskey. It starts off quite assertive, quite in your face, but leave it a little bit of time, get to know it, and it starts to really reveal itself. I keep telling that story, and I'm thinking of sounding more like Richard Patterson every time. I'm not going to start flinging whiskey on the carpet though, so that would just be wrong. Sorry, I just took up like 5 minutes of the tasting there that will never be gained back again. That's gone now. I apologise.
Well, Paul, I was with you. I was thinking this is quite a gentlemanly kind of dram, and actually your kind of anecdote there is exactly the thing that it does. It sums it up. Initially, you're kind of hit with it a little bit, but I mean, you could just sit with this for a long time, couldn't you? It's a beauty of a dram. I dare I ask, how much is this? How much cost?
The last one we do have for sale from the tasting that we have. Can you remember, Gregor? Is it 170 on our website?
Well, I've got my phone in front of me, but it's just let me check.
No, it was just if you knew. There's no panic. We can find out, but
we should know. We're very unprofessional right now, but I think it's 170 on our website. Of course, that's before your club discount of 15%, which does apply, of course, to anything on the website. We do still have a few bottles of other bits and bobs that have not been on the tasting tonight, and of course, if you see something, for example, the fantastic Glen that we bottled in the latest outrun, which is completely sold out before we even got to taste it ourselves almost. There's still a few bottles of Glen remaining. Did you
just lob in a little bit of a hand grenade there and say the 15% discount for the group? Is there a code? Do we need to tell people quickly? And what about those poor people who might have already just ordered? Or did you just order off Master of Malt? As long as you've ordered off Master of Malt, that's fine, because you don't get the discount code for those. But please let us know what the discount code is for ordering off you guys, because I suspect there might be a few bottles being bought.
This one's about 160 odd quid.
Yeah. As I say, bearing in mind, this Glen Grant is the only one from the tasting we are actually able to sell direct. So, but that code, your 15%, if you type in just NEWAS into the comments as you're purchasing the bottle, applies to anything we have for sale on the website. Unfortunately, I can't extend that to Master of Malt and Inverurie Whisky Shop. You can ask, you can tell them Paul sent me with this discount code, but I doubt they will.
No, that's fine. That's great. No, that's wonderful. We love our discount codes. Thank you very much for that. So they're just in the comments box, NEWAS, and you get your discount code off that. So great stuff. And so this definitely a
card as well. So you don't see it, but it gets refunded on your card. I do it myself on the Monday.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers, Gregor. Thanks, Paul. So what's everybody thinking of this one then? Joe, you don't like this one?
No, I really don't.
Just leave now. Now.
Look,
I think what would have been interesting with this one.
I've liked a sherry whiskey and a Jura tonight. So but no, I just find this just dry and a bit bitter on the finish, and not an awful lot else, I'm afraid. No, not for me. This one, like the others, but not this one. No.
I think this one could take a bit of water.
A bit of water?
I've got a bit, because it's softening as I mean, not very much. No more than maybe half a teaspoon.
No.
There's 2 drops.
A couple of drops of water in that makes it absolutely amazing for me.
Yeah, I agree with everybody. Again, it's something that we don't.
Oh, it smells nicer with a couple of drops of water, definitely.
Yeah, but again, it's the same concept as giving it time in the glass. You're allowing it to open up. A couple of drops of water certainly makes a big difference with this one. Turns it into liquid custard creams for me. But yeah, it's one that certainly takes a bit of water. But you know, the reason why I think we chose to put this one so far up in the tasting, even though it's a, you know, from a refill cask, is because for the experience, when you put it at the start of a tasting, it's just too big and bold, and as Joe said, dry for the start of a tasting. So it's a sophisticated whiskey, needs, you know, whiskey number 4 or 5 of the tasting. That
He's saying I'm not. I know that.
Am I that obvious? I was trying to be more subtle than that. No, not at all.
I think what would have been really good with this whiskey is tasting it out of a blind glass, because you're automatically influenced by the color of it, and you think there's no way that is sherried. It's got to be a bourbon. But then when you nose it and you taste it, it's the sherry's there. I mean, it's undeniable. And what I find quite interesting is the age of it compared to the ABV. It's still very high ABV for a 22-year-old.
Yeah.
What stout you drinking, Glen?
Oh,
hazelnut.
Hazelnut. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Actually,
delicious.
it is bloody lovely. If you like hazelnut, that's what it says on the tin. Sorry, I'm hijacking it.
Sorry,
No.
we're drifting into stouts.
Sorry, it's just not an Imperial Macchiato, though, from Wylam, is it?
It's not, you're right. But it is bloody delicious. I think Lorraine's trying to find some online somewhere, because that was our last bottle. Great. Okay. Sorry, I don't know where we were there. We got it right.
Definitely better with 2 drops of water.
Okay. I think I might have to try this.
It takes away the bitterness, definitely.
Yeah. See, I wasn't finding any bitterness on it in the first place, but I based on what Paul was saying before about how it potentially opens it up a little bit more, I'm going to have to try it. So does anybody want to dive in with their view on it, or we're going to do the old thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down, because we've definitely got one left, and I have a feeling that this might be my fave, even though the others have been fantastic. That could win. Anyway, shall we do the thumbs up, or does anybody else want to dive in? We're doing the thumbs up. Okay. Oh, Mike, I'm coming back to you. Okay.
Your dad's a down.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I'm a kind of.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm definitely up on that one. Charlie, you're looking sideways as well. Dave's up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, there's a split in the Callum and Kate there. Yeah. Yeah. There's a split there. Okay. Does everybody want to dive in with their final say on this one?
I'll jump in. I just found it a little bit samey, and nothing to my palate special about it. It was
underwhelming.
Yeah.
I think where I'm going. Is that where you're going, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah. Underwhelming, I'm afraid.
I
Sorry.
think we have to eject both the IT director, who is Mike, and Joe. Get out. Just go.
All right.
I think this one could do with it. Really, I think this one could actually do with about 45 minutes or more. It's just got to sit and just come to you.
Yeah.
Well, I poured all of these about 10 minutes before we started, so mine's had plenty of time.
Yeah.
Definitely one that opens up with a bit of water, which just a couple of drops.
I might have to try it with a little bit of water in it. It goes against my principles, but
I still really enjoy this one. I think it's absolutely fantastic. The complexity when you get into it. Fortunately, for some reason, I poured all mine about a couple of hours before, and the smell on this one is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah,
I thoroughly enjoyed that one, and there's a bit of heat in the tasting of it, the spiciness that you get from the wood, but that's a corker, that.
Yeah. If you poured it about 2 hours ago, you're not even close to the record, because I think Who poured out their drams at about 10 a.m. this morning or something?
No,
I
that
mean,
was Steve. That was.
That was Steve. Yeah.
It was
going to be Steve.
It was
He
John.
probably poured it the night before. It was probably actually Christmas Day when he poured it.
You've got to be prepared, guys. Got to be prepared.
Was it Steve and John having a battle off? Like
they
a
were.
dance off, but it was a whiskey off.
Whiskey
The
off.
thing is, Steve's only a semi-pro. He just takes the tops off the bottles. You've got to pour it into a glass.
But then you just put the lid straight on top, John. isn't it?
Yeah, but there's more surface area. It's all about ratios, mate.
Yeah, before this gets to fisticuffs, we'll move on to dram number 6. Dram number 6. Actually,
Is that the foam ball by any chance?
it might be. It might be. Let's go. Number 6, people. I got this right, by the way. Oh my God. What an amazing this.
Nothing to like about this one, is there? There's nothing, you know.
Nothing. It's
Wow.
There's a
Send your
reason.
samples back. I'll give you a refund on this sample.
Yeah, there's a reason it's last, you know.
Can we just have 5 minutes of mute so everyone can sit and sniff?
Whoa.
Do you want to have a try?
Oh.
Yeah, it wouldn't be,
Kind of whiskey.
wouldn't be a tasting if we didn't finish with an Isla.
I like these people.
just any old Isla, of course, you know. Just,
Any old Isla's fine, yeah. Just bung as an Isla, that's fine.
yeah. Unfortunately, we couldn't just find any old Isla. We had to find one of the most prestigious distilleries that there is in Scotland, let alone Isla. Certainly oldest distillery in Bowmore. And yeah, a quite well aged one as well, 23 years old, from a refill butt. So on paper, the same cask as a Glen Grant, but of course, as you can immediately tell from even just looking at the sample, and then the minute you stick your nose in the glass, it's a different beast altogether.
The peat's really kind of almost herbal. There's like sage and don't want to say juniper and stuff like that. It's not woody peat. It's herbal peat.
Yeah, I think Bowmore has that anyway. That it's certainly known for its floral. We'll call it floral characteristics. It's been called worse along the lines of the FWP, which was coined some certain vintages of Bowmore that has a kind of aroma of a French Fours perfume that was abbreviated to FWP to make it more. It sounds fancier as well, but obviously to hide. But it's certainly, for me, Bowmore has that. It's the more floral side of the peat opposed to the earthy, weighty style. And even modern Bowmores that have moved away from the Parma Violet character that it's known for still have a kind of floral side to it, which is a completely different take on the Isla character compared to, you know, your Kalilas and Lagavulins and Ardbegs, and you know, just makes it that little bit more unique, and dare I say more rare as well. And I still remember the morning spent in the office, sitting down, you know, first thing, just making the coffee. Of course, I, you know, make Gregor's coffee every morning, and you know, you've got to treat the boss well, you know, something. And I sit down, and he tells me that he's got this chance to buy a cask of 1997 Bowmore from Refill Sherry. And I tell you what, that coffee must have been really good that morning, because I've never heard such good news coming from Gregor since I started. And you know, even to this day, I still think, you know, what a privilege we have as a very humble small operation to be able to get our hands on a cask like this, to be able to bottle under our label, and of course, you know, to be able to present that to you guys on a day like this. So I mean, it's fantastic, and it's testament to the work that Greg has done over the years to build these relationships that we have. You know, we are a very small operation, so we're limited in terms of the buying power that we have versus, you know, the Douglas Langs, Gordon and MacPhail, Cadenheads, who, you know, can just swing the big bucks, if you like, at suppliers. But ultimately, in this industry, it's about your relationships, it's about your networks, and, you know, in building these relationships and creating good contacts to be able to get access to things like these. And it really was a privilege to be able to bottle something like this. And that's even before we tasted it. When we tasted it, we were just blown away, absolutely delighted to be able to release this under the Lady of the Glen. And of course, as I mentioned, to share it as well.
I mean, for me, it's a totally unexpected palate compared with the nose, and it is that kind of Parma Violet for me, definitely. You know, the minute that somebody said that, I can't get it out my bloody head. You know, like it is there for me. It's just delicious whiskey.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just
The nose just keeps on giving. I'm getting like salty pebbles now. Callum and Kate are talking about all these delicious things, and I'm getting like, you're sitting on the beach, you're eating nice seafood, and just below the distillery, and there's salty pebbles, and
I mean,
really nice.
It's a stunner. It
Sorry,
is.
I'm waxing lyrical.
No, I was just going to ask whether it was Gregor or Paul, whether you can answer. How long have you had the cask for, and can you give us a little bit of a story around how you managed to get a hold of it then in the first place? Because obviously it is, you know, it is quite difficult to get a hold of an aged Bowmore cask. I mean, did you buy it off a broker? I mean, you know, can you give us a little bit of a history behind it?
We did buy it from a broker, and it came with a few other casks as well. So that's why we've got some really good releases planned going forward. And over the past 3 months, we've released some really great casks as well. We released a Lafroig recently. So yeah, it was just stuff.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, this is fantastic.
I should say as well that this is the only one from the lineup tonight that's from our latest outrun. So this was released as part of our Q1 for this year's outrun, which actually hasn't hit the shelves yet as such. So I've just seen a comment there from Chris saying can't find it for sale anywhere. That's because no one's got it yet. But as of next week, it will be out and about. Let's see.
How much we're looking at for that?
Well, this is the best thing about it. And again, if I go back to a point that we spoke about earlier on about Gregor and I sitting down with the whiskey and saying, you know, do we like the whiskey? Yes. Would we buy it? And ultimately, that has got to be yes as well before we bottle it. So I don't think £240 is too unreasonable for such an aged whiskey as this, and not naming names, but there has been a couple of other independent bottlers bottled a similar vintage recently, and that was a lot more than 240. That's for sure. So, but I think again another important part that I haven't spoken about yet is actually the strength of this one. So, 42.4% is natural cask strength. You know, again along with the Jura, and it's important to get across that actually that is natural strength. We didn't reduce this at all, and that's important to get across because it makes a difference. You know, you're still getting, if you remember back to the Jura, somebody said, you know, mouth coating, oily, you know, and that's at 42%. If that was reduced down with water, you wouldn't get that quality. So it's important to stress this as well, even though it's very low, even just for a 23-year-old whiskey, that is completely natural cask strength.
What kind of cask was it in again, sorry?
The person who was selling the cask was maybe a little bit worried about that, which helped facilitate the extraction or the movement of the cask, which we ultimately benefited from.
Sorry, Philip, what was your question?
What kind of cask was it in again, sorry?
It's a refill butt. So again, you know, if I can compare again to the Glen, that's the information we get is it's refill butt. So at some point it had sherry in it, but we don't know how many. But again, you know, you look at the difference in this one compared to the Glen Grant, it's much more active and this very similar length of time. So, you know, you don't, the casks don't come with a, you know, a history as such. Sometimes they do. It's like buying a car. Sometimes they come with a service history. Sometimes they don't. You don't know where it's been. You can only look at the evidence you have, and that is that, you know, this one, although it's refill, it's certainly got a little bit more to offer. So the whiskey that was in there before maybe wasn't in there for such a long time that the cask still had a little bit of life left in it to offer.
This is the only one of the 6 try tonight where I've found the flavours on the palate match what I've got on the nose. On the others, there's been a nice, apart from the Glen Grant, a nice sort of contrast. But this one, everything that's there on the palate, the herbalness, the dry, the salty pebbles, the seafood and whatever is there on the palate. And it's just such a nice, well-rounded whiskey. Can you tell I like this? I don't normally like Bowmore, by the way. It's my least favourite Isla.
Me too. I'm the same.
And this is coming from a lady who loves Lafroig.
Lafroig, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, this is superb.
John, have you kept a bit for Joe?
Hello?
John, have you kept a bit for Joanne?
Well, she tried it before we started.
And did you like it or not?
Yes and no. I mean, she wasn't like bowled over by it, but I
Okay.
think she enjoyed it.
Okay. I was just kind of curious.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a lady of good taste.
I kind of fell out of love with Bowmore about 8 or 9 years ago. I used to really enjoy the 15 and the 18, and I really then started finding, I thought there was a flavour profile change in it, and I really stopped enjoying Bowmore. It could have just been my taste buds, but that has just really, really given me love again for Bowmore. That reminds me of a really good old Bowmore back when I used to really drink it, because I ended up turning to Bunnahabhain for my Isla whiskey, and that is just absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
Cheers for that. I think it's an interesting point. I've heard that from quite a lot of people about, you know, Bowmore changing, especially in the last, well, between 5 and 10 years, flavour profile. For me, it's never tasted more chill filtered and coloured than it is than at any time before. And don't get me wrong, I'm not having a go at distillers who chill filter and colour their whiskey. Some of my favourite whiskies that I will never be without in my cabinet are, you know, chill filtered and coloured to the end of the earth, but they still remain as some of my favourite whiskies. But I think, you know, there's a certain character, flatness, if you like, in the current Bowmores, and again, I'm not. It's not. It is personal taste. Phil, you're right. It's all about personal taste. It changes. What appealed to us in the past, maybe it doesn't appeal to some others, and vice versa. You know, but this is certainly old school Bowmore. You know, the fruitiness is there. It's not too floral, and it's just got life that's evolving in the glass as well.
When's this released again, sorry? When are we looking to see this released?
Next week.
Next week?
Yeah, essentially it is released. We put it on the website and it sold out within minutes. The allocation we had for our own website, we only got 137 bottles from the cask. So that was quite sad to think of such an immense product and only having that to go around. But it meant, you know, of course it adds a premium to it as well. You know, that you've got something so limited, but we did have a few, and they basically disappeared overnight. And we thought, you know, we can't keep too much for ourselves. We need to kind of share something like this around with, especially our loyal customers who've really helped the business in the last few years, and especially, you know, last year again. You know, think about what the industry's been through, what we've all been through in the last year, and there's been some really key customers for us out there who've really helped grow the business to the point we are now. I don't think many businesses in this world have gone from, you know, where Hannah Whiskey Merchants and Gregor was at the start of 2020, and this year, you know, that since then, who've grown, taken on, you know, 3 members of staff got their own warehouse. That's testament to some of our customers who've been really loyal to us and stuck with us through there. So we felt obliged to, you know, split such a limited outrun of such a special product amongst them. So, but yes, if you like this, it will be available next week. I've got a van hired for Monday, and I'm driving to most of our customers to drop the new outrun off with them, and from then it'll be available. Some of the shops you mentioned, Inverurie for the example, Aberdeen, those kind of shops are worth giving a little shout out to, because those are the ones I'm talking about that have helped us through a tough year.
It's always good to support the independent bottlers.
But £240 is a week's wages to me, and I can't spend that on a bottle of whiskey.
Well, maybe there might be a bottle split or something that we can arrange in some shape or form.
No, I was just wanting to say I'm very grateful to have been able to try it, though. It's superb whiskey, as of everything tonight. Even the Glen Grant was with the water better. So thank you, Gregor. Thank you, guys. It was well done, Glen, for arranging this. Carl, this is really amazing.
Carl, it's always good getting in touch with your society for tastings and engaging with yourself. So yeah, thanks. I mean, we essentially send the bottles down to Carl, and then he has to do a lot of work to get it out to everyone who's part of this. So yeah, Slange, Carl, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Carl.
Cheers. And thanks to you lot, because it wouldn't happen if you weren't interested and kept buying into them. So thank you very much. And I guess this is the opportunity, people. What was your favourite? Shall we do a little bit of a, in the chat, which your favourite and your least favourite was? What the heck? So just put in the chat what you thought was your favourite. 1 to 6, or you can say more, Jura, whatever, just so we can get an idea. I have a feeling that Glen Lossie's going to win. You know, like I'm just guessing here.
And then
and must be no competition. Okay, Glen Lossie versus Bamore bottom. Okay, Neil's a Bamore.
quite nice.
I've got 1 and 6. It's bits in between. I can't do that.
I have to say, actually, there's been a few that are so close in terms of the top for me. I was in terms of bang for buck, in terms of the cost versus how much you get for your money. I think that Glen Lossie takes a lot to be beaten, really. 21 at my point, right? Okay, so I think Bamore's kicking in. But, right.
Yeah.
Some good stuff there. Jura number 2, okay. 6 least right, okay. Oh, we're getting some good feedback here. Number 5 for me. Number 5 was the.
God, how'd you choose between your favourite children?
Yeah. Does anybody want to jump in with and give their opinion on the lineup overall?
That's really funny. Look, Chris is exactly the same.
Oh, Rebecca, you jumped in just at the right moment where I was asking for somebody to give us their opinion on the lineup. So, Ollie and Rebecca, take the stage.
No, I really don't
know. Like Chris's was the same.
The exact same order that pretty much we would pick.
Glen Lossie, Bowmore, Jura, Glen Grant, and Tanish.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I think I've got this.
My one comment on ordering is that Bamore's a bit too expensive. At 240, it was very nice, but for 240, I think I could get some other ones that I prefer.
Yeah, I think it's the value for money as well as
the equation, though.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is where, you know, there is that kind of bang for buck, and I guess that's I'm possibly in the similar sort of situation where, you know, maybe if I was a Premier League footballer or something, then I might have considered that Bamore as being the best bang for buck for me. But for me, the Glen Lossie sort of provided that kind of return, if you like. So I understand where you're coming from.
For me, the Bamor nose out of all of them, it was so complex, and it was just, Joe said it best earlier, where it was just a nose that just kept giving. Every time you went back to it after a sip, or just going back to it and back to it, you found another note, and that was a really spectacular nose.
Yeah. Oh, I'm pretty sure it's going to sell out. There's no doubt about it, because it is so complex.
I mean, I got the email the other day saying that it was about to go on sale, and then on the Lady of the Glen website, and I think I was about an hour too late, because I didn't read my email straight away. Within an hour, they'd all sold out.
Yeah. Well, I bet the same with the shops.
Pretty much, yeah. It's been the we couldn't supply. I mean, if we had 3 times the volume of this, we couldn't satisfy everybody. The kind of phrase beating people off with a shitty stick comes to mind. It really has been one of those. But you know, it's been a great example, or great exercise in balancing in a way. You know, we knew we were going to cause a bit of kerfuffle with bottling this whiskey, but there's no denying the quality of the liquid in our minds.
No, definitely not.
You know, it deserves to be given the light of day. And you know, as I say, it's fine. It's a fine balance, keeping everybody happy.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a beauty. There's no doubt about it. Actually, the whole lineup has been very, very, very good for me anyway. You know, I would definitely, ordinarily, I would struggle to pick out my favorite, because there is so much difference between the 6 as well. So it's a fine line you've given us in terms of, you know, that contrast between them. Not one of them has been in any way similar, in my view. I love them. So I'm just going to pick on a couple of, I don't know, Sarah, you've been quiet tonight. Do you want to give us your, I always pick on you, I know. Sorry, Sarah. What's your view?
That's okay. I am really struggling to order them in order of favorites, actually. I think my favorites were probably 1 and 2, the Glen Lossie and the Achroisk. But which way round those go, I've got a little bit left of each of them, and I keep trying them, and I'm still not sure. I really like the Bamor as well. The Jura is probably my least favorite, but because I like them all so much, that it's only tiny sort of tiny different sort of margins between them. As you say, they're all so different. Yeah, I've really enjoyed them all. Really nice.
Thank you. What about you, Chris Gladman? Yeah, I think you've been relatively quiet tonight. Do you want to throw in your 2 penneth? I'm just trying to pick on everybody who's been quiet.
Yeah, I just love the Glen Lossie, just the fruitiness. It was perfect for me.
Yeah, that was a beauty.
Especially at the price as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think Gregor and Paul, you're definitely on a winner with that Glen Lossie. It's a shame it's sold out in most places, but it's still out there in the wild somewhere, I'm sure.
Well, Carl, I was going to say, you remember last year we did the Bunnahabhain, the sherry bomb. We actually released the sister cask of that in this outrun. So it's the same, it's a similar cask, but it's 1 year older, it's 10-year-old. We've actually got 2 of those for sale on the website. I know that was.
Sorry, Joe, did you say peated or unpeated? I think that was the question there, Gregor. Sorry, go on.
It's the same as the last time, so it's a non-peated Bunnahabhain, but it's heavily sherried.
Nice.
Right, and that's available right now.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Just try and keep them occupied for a moment. Sorry, I'm just busy. Just give me a minute.
May I just offer one other comment? I appreciate Master of Malt may have the extra £1 or 2 here or there, but Aberdeen Whiskey Shop and Inverary, they're the guys that actually have people behind all of this, and I have no shares in either. But don't forget to support your local whiskey shop, because otherwise it'll always be Master of Malt or Whiskey Exchange or whomever, or Tyndrum Whiskey as well, by the way. You know, Craig's a great guy. they're the guys that really, you know, for the extra quid or two, they're very, very well worth it. It's all I'm going to throw out there. And they're the people that help Gregor and Paul to be able to produce, you know, or to get out these types of whiskies to us rather than just their own website. So please, I'm just going to say a quick word for the independents.
Well said, Dave.
Yeah, thank you.
Definitely.
So that's the end of the official tasting lineup tonight. But like any normal pub in normal time, doors are not closing until we say
fat
so.
lady sings.
But I would like to extend.
I should open this then.
Yes, Joe, open it.
Yeah, I would like to extend a big thank you to Paul and to Gregor for taking the time out with us. Thank you very much. As usual, it's been a pleasure. It really has. Thank you very much. And we're so pleased to have you guys come along and do this with us, you know, because, you know, had it not been for COVID, we might not be have the chance to kind of sit with you and do all of this. So we have to say thanks for small mercies that we, you know, that we get a chance to do this. And it's been a cracking night. And thanks to everybody else who's come along and taken part. Hope to see you in the next tasting. If you are disappearing now, the next one is on the 13th of Feb, and it's Glen Moray, and we're going to do a blind tasting of 6 whiskies from Glen Moray. But Paul, Gregor, you're welcome to stick around for as long as you want. The pub doesn't shut until the last person turns off the light and closes the door. But thank you very much. I'm going to shut up for a minute.
That's usually me when I'm at work.
We've actually got Glen Moray for sale. That's part of the outrun. So we bottled a single cask first fill bourbon barrel of Glen Moray.
Yeah. Well, and like you say, there's still some of your Glen Moray, the first fill. I noticed that there's 5 of them left on there. So yeah. And the NEWAS code as well, just put in the comments box and you get your discount funded. So thank you very much, and thanks everybody for coming along. Fraser, just a quick last moment. This is your first time that you've been on a virtual tasting ever.
Yes.
Right, and how did you find it?
Very enjoyable. Very enjoyable. I like to see the fact that there's a lot of people there that really enjoy what they're doing.
Good.
Thanks, Fraser. Thank you very much, and thanks for
Quite all right. But
could
I just say my preference was number 3.
Number 3 was the tin in it.
It wasn't. Was it?
Who knows what number 3 was?
Oh, maybe it was the tin.
Yeah. No. Okay. And you're not a peat.
But that's purely from a point of drinking it. You know, not savouring it. Something that I could go to again and again.
Yeah. No, it's a beauty. Right.
Well, thank you very much. It's been very enjoyable.
Thanks.
Cheers, Fraser. Well, hopefully we'll have you along on the 13th as well.
Oh,
ready for that.
Well, it all depends whether I can get me sidekick to lug us on.
So I'm going to shut up.
Take care.
If I could just extend what Gregor said as well, of course, it makes a big difference to us when we can present the whiskies to like-minded people. It makes our jobs much easier, much more enjoyable as well, you know, because we're all on the same page. And I think, I hope that we get a little bit of that across as well, that it is our job, but at the end of the day, you know, we do love whiskey just as much as you. We put ourselves in your shoes as much as possible. It's always good to see familiar faces as well. And if I can just extend out a hello to Malcolm, who's seen me a few times before back in my whiskey shop days. He's heard all my stories. Ian as well, familiar faces. Always makes it, believe it or not, a little bit more nerve-wracking when you see people you know, because like I said, they've heard all the stories before and you think, oh, he's telling that joke again, you know. But but no,
like
it's
being in an interview, isn't it? Like
exactly,
being in an interview,
exactly.
but you know the people who are going to interview you, so you can't bullshit. Sorry.
When you put it that way, now I'm terrified for my next tasting. Thank you. Not at all. Not at all. It's really, as I say, it really is a pleasure to you know, to be able to bring the whiskies to you guys. And as I said, I wasn't actually supposed to be here tonight. It was a kind of last minute thing that switched around that allowed me to join in, and I'm awfully glad that happened. So, cheers, guys.
Paul, thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
Cheers, Paul. The interview's gone very well, and you've got the job, Paul. Well done.
Actually, Paul, you've just reminded me that I was going to ask a question of both Gregor and yourself, and it's a question that comes up quite regularly in our interview, you know, like our chats and stuff with others. I think I may have asked this of Gregor on our first outing a while back. But you know, you mentioned you've got 240 casks or so in your portfolio. I guess a question that a lot of us will want to know the answer to, and that is, out of your 240 casks, what do you think is going to be your stunner? You know, like not necessarily of the next outturn, or what do you think the cask is that's maturing right now that you just think is going to be an absolute stunner? And so we can make a note of it and keep an eye out for when you do release it.
There you
go. So I think the last time I answered it, I mentioned that we've got the Kalila, which is an Amarone wine. We've got quite a lot of that, of different vintages, which are all from the same vineyard. We've also got a really interesting Isla cask that will probably release at the Q3 this year, or Christmas, which is it's a Lefroy, which has been teaspooned, and that's in a sherry cask. We've got interesting Orkney malt, which will be released. So yeah, a couple real gems.
I need to save up then.
Oh, sorry. What's the vineyard that of the Amarone vineyard that you use?
It's Veneto Botti.
Nice.
So we've released the Kalilas from there, and they've been incredibly popular. We've actually got a Kalila which is coming out in the Q2 outrun, which is from it's been finished in another fortified sweet wine. So that one should be really good as well.
Gregor, I'm massively taken with the idea of that Kalila Amarone. Maybe we need to have a discussion about doing a NEWAS bottling, if you would be open to that, of one of them.
Yeah, we'd be keen to do a bottling for you, whether you want like a cask or an octave. We have done it for another club, so it's not something that would be off the table. Stuff like the Amarone wine, though, because of that, the popularity, it's the same issue that we've got for the Bowmore. A lot of our distributors ask us the same question, like, have you got any really amazing casks? And we kind of do need to spread that sort of stuff about.
Yeah.
Well, mentioned that we actually have a distributor. Told them about the Bowmore, we need over 37 cases of it, but we essentially knocked it back and said, well, that's not going to happen, because we need to spread it about and make sure everyone gets a fair chance of it.
No, understand. I'll put my disappointed face on, but understand entirely.
It would be a lot easier for us to just wholesale sell it to one distributor. We do try and spread it about so it is fair.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Carol, to be fair, I don't think Gregor said no at any point there.
He didn't. He didn't. I had him not say no.
It would be like, because you have like 3 cases or 4 cases, 20 odd cases.
He definitely did not say no.
Yeah, well,
Hopefully,
that's good.
Yeah,
I'll have that conversation.
Having our own warehouse gives us so much flexibility in that regard. you know, maybe we might disappoint you by saying we don't have, or we can't offer you an Amarone Kalila. We certainly have more Kalila, but you know, the options are there, you know, for being able to do a bespoke label, you know, on demand sort of thing, and just gives us that, as I say, the ultimate flexibility to be able to offer. And it's certainly, you know, something we want to do a lot more of, because, you know, ultimately it's making the most out of what we have, the assets we have as a business going forward. And ultimately, as I mentioned about before, you know, we want to work with people that we're connected with in our sense. And if we thought that we could provide a bottle that's going to be unique and exclusive to you guys, and you know, could be treasured that way, then it was something we'd certainly be interested in working towards finding something for you. Absolutely. Yeah.
I would definitely like to talk to you on that, Paul. Really would at some point, because that's really cool.
Okay.
From my side of the area, yeah.
Yeah. All doable.
Good.
This secret Isla is fantastic, by the way. Even though it's no secret and I know exactly what it is.
And even though it's not part of tonight's tasting, Joe.
Yeah, stop rubbing it in.
We're all
Carl, check your messages.
Paul and Greg.
Thank you very much for giving up your Saturday night as well. It's getting close to 10 o'clock, and I appreciate that this is how you reach out to people like us. But thank you very much for spending the time with us and sharing your passion with us.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, no problem. As long as my wife keeps thinking I'm working, it's all good.
Paul and Greg, do you find there being an issue if you mentioned a teaspooned dram just a moment ago? Do you find there being issues for you if you did stuff like that with the whole product of origin stuff into Europe, if you needed to ship into Europe?
We've never done it before, to be 100%. We've never released a teaspoon release, so it's going to be a bit different. It shouldn't be an issue though, because it will be a blend. It'll be that'll be what's the commodity code and everything. That will be a blend, even though it's not a single can.
Okay, thank you.
What a question to ask at that time of night.
Sorry.
But yeah, you're right, Phil. I think Gregor got it spot on. And I think the question was asked earlier on about blends, or even you know, non-Scotch whiskies. At the moment, our brand is Lady of the Glen, and right at the top of the branding it says Scotch whiskies of distinction. So the minute we buy a cask of Macmira or Amrut or something like that, then we have to create a new brand or thing for it. The same extends to the Cotswolds. I'd love a cask of that. You know, it's the idea of, you know, having a blend, but yeah, it's not going to. The new restrictions aren't going to change things much with in regard to that. It is essentially a blended malt.
Pleased to hear it.
Origins. You know, at the end of the day, it's still Scotch whisky produced in Scotland, bottled in Scotland. Shouldn't be affected.
And to be honest, Paul, I think we'd be forgiving if you suddenly had the odd non-Scotch. You don't need to change all your labels or anything. I'm pretty sure we'd forgive you.
Yeah, because they do have issues with labels, because my tube says that this is bottle number 13 of 66, and my bottle says it's bottle number 7 of 66.
Oh.
That's before we had our own warehouse.
Confused of Isla.
It's dyslexia. It'd be fine.
Yes, somebody probably has the other set of that.
Someone's got a tube that says 7 and then the bottle inside says 13, and they're probably disappointed. You should be happy.
Bottled by Carl.
Like I said, all these things happened when we were paying people to do that for us. Now we have our own warehouse. If we do, like Joe, like saying, we can't take any blame for that at all. Of course not.
Then I have this North Star sticker, which says that the 24-year-old Canvas I had was a single malt.
Yeah, that's right.
Canvas haven't produced single malt for a long time.
I remember Ian bottling that one. I know Ian well, and he was too late by the time it was spotted.
Yeah. So I had a bottle of, it was fantastic, single grain, but not what the label said. Absolutely fantastic. I love things like that, though. It shows that this has people involved in it. It's not just a machine. It's not doesn't just go through a sort of process and nobody's involved. This shows that people are involved, people care, people handle this, which to me makes it special.
Yeah. Well, someone didn't care enough that time, to be fair. So,
No, they obviously possibly had been drinking the product, perhaps.
Tasting it, yeah.
Yeah, quality control.
Can I just jump in, because I don't think we heard anything from Malcolm today. Malcolm, did you fancy giving us a little bit of a take on the whiskies that we had tonight?
Just a moment, Carl. I've closed my book.
Oh, you've got your book as well.
Oh yes, especially where Paul's concerned. I put my thumb up to the Jura, and after tasting the other five whiskies, I don't know why, because Glenlossie came number 1, Glen Grant 2, but it was close, very close to Glenlossie. Glen Grant was a beautiful, beautiful whiskey, and I poured my whiskies at 6 p.m.
Right.
So it was a good couple hours. Well, a good hour.
Oikmusk came 3, and the summer whiskey 10-inch was 4. Bowmore didn't even come into the frame.
All right.
I'm not a Bowmore fan, never have been, never will be.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
a shame.
Good call. Right. Okay. Do you think, Malcolm, I'm just curious whether you had any view in terms of what makes, for you, what makes Lady of the Glen maybe a bit different? Their releases and that, or?
No, that's a good question. It's like a lot of independent bottlers, you know, how they get hold of these casks is amazing. Really, really is amazing. Are they being sold casks that, well, no one else wants? Are they
making the best of what they have? Yeah.
Yes.
Not necessarily Lady of the Glen, but just
I'm not just all independent bottlers
have to make the best of what they can get a hold of.
Indeed. And I think I'm like yourself and like a few other people.
Bye, Charlie.
I think the way down the street is to go for independent bottlers, because some of the whiskies at the moment, I'm a member of the Scottish Malt Whisky Society, and I've noticed the latest outturn, the number of whiskies on sale is so young, it's unreal and expensive.
I was just going to say, young doesn't necessarily make them bad, but if they're not, if the quality's not necessarily...
No, I'm not saying good, bad or indifferent. I'm just saying the number of whiskies on sale with the Scottish Malt Whisky Society, one of the independent bottlers, the whiskies are so young, and yet Lady of the Glen come along, 22-year-old, 23-year-old, or whatever. So why aren't the Scottish Malt Whisky Society doing that? But if you see the Scottish Malt Whisky Society doing that, the prices are prohibitive.
Yeah.
But Maidenhead's fantastic. Lady of the Glen, very good indeed.
Yeah.
Very good.
No, cheers, Malcolm.
No problem.
You had a good night anyway.
I've had a fantastic night, and it's good to see Paul again.
Yeah, likewise.
I think the last time we went was in Glasgow Airport.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
You were coming from Ireland and I was going to Ireland.
I know.
Do they still have them things?
What's an airport?
Well, yeah, well, don't mention it.
I've got a long memory. But no, great evening. Fantastic.
Oh, good. I mean, it's been lovely. And I mean, one of the nice things that, like I say, I genuinely do think one of the good things for me that's come out of all this shitstorm that we've had has been the virtual tastings. You know, I mean, what we've been able to achieve, as whether it's the industry, whether it's clubs like us, you know, being able to get people like Paul and Gregor to come along and talk us through their whiskies and sample the kind of stuff that we've been able to do over the last sort of 10 months or so is just something we would have been able to do it in any other way. When we were getting together as face to face, and don't get me wrong, I can't wait to be back in front of everybody and having a beer, you know, a beer and a lovely whiskey with people. There's no doubt about that. But this is the next best thing that we can do, and it is pretty good. It's got its advantages as well.
Indeed.
Well, I'd never have been able to do a tasting with you because I live in Gloucestershire and you live several hundred miles north of that and stuff. So I feel through these tastings I've met so many people that I wouldn't ordinarily have met. I get to talk to all sorts of amazing people who, like I say, I wouldn't have talked to if people like you had not organised events like this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Actually, Stu raised a nice point there. Are the festivals not happening actually having an impact on Lady of the Glen? Normally, I would say Stuart dive in, but I just thought I'd just jump in and ask the question for you.
I think Paul can answer that. He's the one who's meant to be doing all the festivals, and I see him in the office too often to really think that he must be going to them. So
Paul might have buggered off.
Paul's disappeared.
Yeah.
Well, essentially,
Gregor, you've got to do some work.
Yeah. Festivals to be planned. I mean, I think Paul's been in touch with all the main ones in Scotland, and I believe the Fife one was cancelled. It was going to be in March. There's another one that was going to happen.
They're looking at doing a virtual one, aren't they?
Yeah.
Might be another.
But as far as we're concerned, there aren't any festivals that are going ahead. Maybe the Glasgow one will go ahead, but that's always at the tail end of the year anyway. Our distributor, sort of, their business model's based on festivals, and they're not really doing any.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Speyside people do an autumn one now, don't they? They have the last, so that might, they're hoping, go ahead, but
there might be another one in December as well.
The Isla Festival's cancelled. That's not going ahead. So
yeah. And the Campbelltown one.
Yeah. I was hoping to get to that because that would have been my 50th birthday party, but
oh well. Surely not.
Gregor, can I ask a question about the bottle? This is a very girly question, but where did the beautiful design for the bottle come from? The bottle design doesn't normally affect me, but I think your bottle design is very special.
Well, it's a good question, that actually, because when I first started the business, I really wanted to make a point of having using Scottish businesses and celebrating Scottish design. So the actual company that done that, it was a duo who did fabric design called Bespoke Atelier. So there were two Glasgow School of Art students, one of them French and the other one Scottish. They do lots of design projects, and I got in touch with them to help me do the floral design, which was all about nature and everything like that. So they designed it. So you can find them. Yeah, a really good design team.
Really good.
Really nice.
Oh, thanks.
So just a quick question. If you can buy a cask from any distillery, which distillery do you want a cask from?
Probably Lagavulin. Although I have acquired stock, single cask stock from Lagavulin, and I'm not sure I was particularly lucky with it. So the single cask stuff I got wasn't great, but I would love to release some Lagavulin. But I can't really see it happening anytime soon.
Gregor, I don't know if you we did a the Jim McEwen tasting, and as part of that we had the 2017 Jazz Festival Lagavulin was part of the lineup for the festival, and I think it was kind of telling. I've found that Lagavulin are kind of being, if you like, Diageo'd, in that. But by that I mean that they're kind of relying on the name, and the cask quality seems to just be going downhill. And the 2017 just seemed to be an illustration of that to some extent. When we did the Jim McEwen tasting, I think that came out as one of the poorer whiskies, even though it was perhaps one of the more built up ones that we had in the lineup. It just felt tired. And it's strange because we did the warehouse tasting, John and I and Lorraine and that, we were on Isla. Luckily, we got there in the kind of the summer period, or the period when you were able to actually do anything. So we managed to do a quick trip over to Isla, and we did the warehouse tasting, and the Jazz Festival bottling at the time felt really good. It was a really nice tasting and tasting whiskey. But when we actually did the V tasting with Jim McEwen, and Jim kind of summed it up for me, when we actually compared it with others, it was just tired, and Jim just tore a new asshole in it, really. He said it was absolutely terrible. He thought that it was just a dead cask, and all the rest of it. So I don't know if that means anything to you, but it just feels as if Lagavulin have lost their way a little.
If I can just sort of jump in, I'm 100% with you there, and I think you summed it up well by saying Diageo'd, and I know that for a fact, and you can laugh about it, but it's certainly true to a certain extent. I'm fortunate enough to have been to many Isle festivals, going back as far as 2006, 2007, and right up till 2015, back when it used to be their festival bottle was celebrated single cask that was chosen by Pinky, who I'm sure you met at your warehouse tasting. Good friend of my family's as well. And he'll tell you, if you ask him the right way, that was, he used to say on the label, I picked this, it was picked by Ian MacArthur, back when he was able to do such things. And now they are, in a way, a victim of their own success. So, festival bottlings, jazz festival bottlings are no longer single casks. They are just a product with Lagavulin on it. And I'm torn with this because I'm not having a go at them. I do understand business, at the end of the day. But there's no doubt that some of the quality is certainly sacrificed a wee bit in terms of getting the volumes they need to satisfy. And it's just, as I say, I remember going to Isle Festival, and you didn't have to queue for a bottle, a single cask Lagavulin. You could go back and buy another if you wanted later in the week. And those days are long gone, long gone. So, on one hand, I'm disappointed, but at the same time, I'm all about everyone getting a piece of the pie if they can, because I hate the concept of queuing for a bottle, and most of it going on shelves to be collected. So let's make something that's 3,000 bottles, and if anyone wants to buy it, they can buy it and get a piece. So I'm kind of torn with that, and I think Springbank have been going down that road as well recently, and I've got a lot of friends who have been going to the Campbelltown Festival for a long time, and they hate the fact that it's no longer single casks that they're bottling. But then the festival's so popular that they can't justify doing that anymore, or else it's going to create chaos. And they don't want bottles flipping for 4-5 times the price. So the best way to do that is to make it more widely available. So I don't know. I don't know where I stand with that, to be honest. But
but it's strange.
But any distillery has good casks and bad casks.
But what I found is that it's strange, isn't it? Because Kalila I don't know whether it's the quality of their spirit. Kalila seems to almost, it doesn't matter what the hell cask you put Kalila into, it seems to be able to just shine. For me anyway, I don't know if anybody would agree, but the Kalila just seems to be able, you could put the stinkiest, horriblest cask and it'll still come out smelling of roses. Whereas Lagavulin just doesn't seem to be able to maybe achieve that same degree. Maybe it's just, well, I know it's just my personal opinion, but Lagavulin.
I would agree with you on that, Carl.
Yeah.
I think Kalila's pretty much the most consistent whiskey out there. That just about, I've never had a bad Kalila from anywhere.
I mean, that could literally be the NEWAS tagline, couldn't it?
All I would say is, though, just remember that Kalila outturns more than basically the rest of Islay combined in terms of its output. But I guess my point being is that when you get a single cask from, let's say, Gregor, Lady Glen, or from Bruce at Dramful, or whomever it happens to be, Ed at single cask, they're not going to be able to put out a crap cask because that will damage the brand. But the rest of it goes to Johnny Walker and other blends. So you're not really used to what Kalila, I say in inverted commas, is as a brand. You are from Lagavulin's perspective. And then when they don't measure up to kind of what we expect, because sadly, and I absolutely agree, they are being Diageo-fied, if there is such a word, we kind of lose that love of what we feel they were, which is the love of the whiskey. And actually it's now the shareholder. All I'm going to say is that just remember that, Kalila was the massive outturn, massive output that you never tried, because we're getting to try the actual kind of single casks, because Gregor's be able to get his hands on it, or whomever. It's great.
But
we
Dave,
have no basis for comparison.
But one of the things I would say, though, Dave, is that even the core range Kalilas, like the 12, the Mock, like some of the, I mean, when you're saying Kalila is a massive it is a factory of a distillery, and like you say, it produces more than practically all the rest of the distilleries put together on Islay. You would think that overall its quality would not even be comparable in many respects to the likes of Lagavulin, but actually, like I say, that even the core range for me is shooting above its weight. But I know what you're saying.
But then you find with even Diageo's Tininiche, it's I think it's to do with the production. So you're probably getting the consistency because they're able to produce so much at one point, where Lagavulin's such a small producer that it is going to be different batch to batch. With Kalila, Tininiche, these are like factory operations. They're churning out a huge amount of a constant product, which is 24/7 production. So there's not really much room for differences. So that's probably playing into why these workhorse distilleries are producing more consistent spirit.
And I absolutely agree with you there, Gregor. You summarised what I was trying to say in about 10,000 words in about 100, so thank you.
I guess it's interesting because not a lot of folk like we'll probably never release a Kilcoman cask, but I guess if you were to compare Kilcoman with maybe Lagavulin and see how much Kilcoman changes, that would be your next difference, really.
Yeah, I've never really been able to get into Kilcoman. I've never been into Kilcoman. I actually, when we were on Islay, we visited Kilcoman again, and I tried a few of the, well, at the time they were just releasing the latest 100% Islay, and it was underwhelming to me. And I don't know why, but I've just never been able to get into Kilcoman as much as I'd love to. So I maybe need to spend a bit more time on it, I guess.
I think I kind of feel the same way, Carl, but the interesting thing with Kilcoman, I think their core range gets better year on year. So this year's Maccabe was better than last year's Maccabe.
All
but
right.
I don't think we've had the same level of improvements in their more batch releases. Like the best Loch Gorm was for me was like 2015. So I think they're kind of big, sort of sexy collectible, for want of a better word, bottles haven't really gotten a lot better, but their core range is starting to become really solid.
All right.
Sanig is brilliant. Sanig is classic.
Yeah, I haven't tried.
Absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're learning how to be a distillery so much as that core range, Ian, and I absolutely agree with you. The collector's editions are almost kind of spin-offs.
Yeah.
Forget about the core range almost. We're going to make some money at this. We have to, because I mean, look at the amount of money they've sunk into. They've effectively completely redeveloped their site. I mean, good grief. I remember being there 18 months, almost 2 years ago, when the diggers started first breaking ground, and the distillery is completely different. I've not been there since they changed, but they've got to make their money somehow. I absolutely agree with you, Ian. Their core range is getting progressively better and better and stronger, whereby the special releases ain't that special anymore.
Yeah, I would completely agree. Yep.
All right, Carl, I'm gonna head now, so I'll need to love yous and leave yous because my phone's pretty much on like 10% battery, so it'll cut at any point. But like I say, thanks again, Carl, for arranging this. It was really good to meet you all again, and hopefully we'll get another tasting organised when we've actually got stock to sell as well.
Yeah, cheers, Gregor.
Thanks.
Thanks again.
Thank you very much. And just thanks, Jeremy, for coming on, by the way, from Norway. Hi, Jeremy.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah, you all right? You all well?
Yeah, just bored, fed up
Bored
with
silly.
this.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, and on that bored note, that I'm not bored, by the way. I'm going to go with Lorraine because she's nicked off now. We're sat in the basement, which happens to be as cold as a goddamn dunnage warehouse, frozen to the core. I'm going to do one as well. Lovely to see you guys. Thank you very much for coming along, and hope to see you on the 13th for the Glen Moray tasting. Yeah. It's going to be a blinder. So hopefully see you there and catch you later. Sorry, I have to run and leave you.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.
Thanks, Carl. I'll be in touch as well because I may need another set as well.
Thanks.
Bye. Take care, guys.
Yes, Carl.
I bet it's colder where Jeremy is.
Yeah, actually. Well, I was thinking Gregor actually managed to sit in that warehouse. He must have been frozen to the bloody core as well, I tell you.
I noticed he had a big hoodie on. He must have been bloody freezing.
I know.
To be
He
fair,
needed those Bernie Sanders gloves.
the warehouse is heated. To be fair, it's about it's the same. Our office and warehouse are all the same bit. So actually, it's not as cold as you think. I think the heating cuts off at 12 o'clock at midnight, and then doesn't go back up until 8 in the morning. So he was fine.
All right. Good. He's
Carl, all your lighting behind that must be warming you up.
I wish it doesn't.
Like Blackpool illuminations.
Take care, guys. Lovely to see you. And
See you, Carl.
Thanks for sticking it out as well. Cheers.
Bye.
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 Right, I'm going to kill the recording now. Yay.